That's enough.
We
dude.
did it.
We reached the end of the Twilight Saga. What is that?
So my copy came with a poster, some weird Edward and Bella in anime form.
Yeah, dude, some anime, Bella and Edward.
And it's just on the inside of the cover.
Damn, I didn't have any of that. I guess mine was published way later. Listeners, it's the same thing. We're doing Little Brown, same type of deal. Mine was just published like what, 15 years after Sophie's version. Oh, and it came with a CD?
Yeah, man, mine came with a CD that I
What?
guess I've never pulled out.
What tracks?
Oh, I think it's a DVD.
Oh,
It's
DVD?
Yeah. I have no means to use this.
What's it a DVD
But,
of? Because it was pre-movie, right?
With Stephenie Meyer and Justin Furstenfeld, which I think is maybe the guy from Blue October, because there's also a bunch of Blue October lyrics in the back of this book.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that is. Is that from that interview where there's like the concert series?
No, that's well, yeah. There's also the interview, but the interview comes before the lyrics. After there's like this interview, and then it just says Breaking Dawn Concert Series Songbook. Songs performed by Blue October's Justin Furstenfeld at the Nokia Center in New York City on August 1st, 2008.
2008, dude, that was right when this dropped, right? Yeah, 2008 was when the Breaking Dawn dropped, the big fat final book.
Oh, yeah.
And they have their own website, thetwilightsaga.com. Well, here we are. We got the end of it. This was, we didn't plan on this, so we readjusted our schedule, listeners, but was it worth it? Was it worth us reading all of the Twilight Saga? I told Sophie this, like, when we finished, like, when I finished the second movie, like the Breaking Dawn Part 2 and the credits were rolling, I was just like, whew. Like, I just had like this relief come over me. I was like, oh, it's over. Like, this is what we do for our listeners. We suffer for them. All three of them.
Heavy.
Bored.
Heavy.
I am heavy.
Bored.
I may say that the male is entirely hostile. No! Inner
Resources.
life, friends, is boring. We must not say so.
Yeah, I had a really hard time with the first movie.
Part 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had less of a hard time with the second movie.
Oh, I want to get to that because I like the second movie better too, out of the two. But first things first. This is Heavy Board. My name's Andrew Whitstadt.
And I'm pro child brides.
And today we're doing the final big hulking book in the Twilight Saga, Breaking Dawn by Stephenie Meyer. And the formality's over. All right. First things first, thoughts. Initial thoughts. Likes, dislikes.
It's my favorite pro-life story.
Pro-life story.
I really enjoyed about 300 pages of this book.
Oh,
Well, okay. I kind of enjoyed about 300 pages of this book. But that said, there are like 400 other pages that I did not enjoy. That I found very difficult to get through.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my favorite pro-abstinence, pro-life fantasy novel I've ever read. It's also the only one I've ever read to my knowledge. There's so much wrong with it, including some of the stuff that I really enjoyed.
Ooh.
Very taboo for a teen romance, in my opinion.
Taboo. Yeah. I want to touch on the bad stuff, but I imagine we'll get there. Yeah, my thoughts was, I mean, the same as all the other ones. Like, these books were struggles for me. Although, I'll say this is the best book in the entire series by far. But only for
I'm
about
torn on
300.
that.
Yeah, only for about 300 pages, because this book is like 800 pages. And,
Because the only reason why the other books, like, have a story at all is because of the, like, Ed and Bella tension of will they, won't they, I don't know, like, be physical or whatever it is. And in this one, it was just like there was no more, like, Jacob, Bella, Ed triangle. There was no weird tension about Ed and Bella getting together. There's no, I don't know. There's no real romantic thrill for it being like a romance novel. It picks back up a little bit at the end, but there's like a good chunk of the story where it feels like instead of being a romance novel, it should become like something more gruesome.
right.
But it kind of just doesn't.
Yeah, and we've said that every episode. I mean, every time there's like a big scene, Meyer does this in her work, is just the big scene that's supposed to carry this weight just doesn't, so it's always disappointing. But I guess the reason I say that this is the best book in the series is just because all the storylines are being tied up, even the ones that are tied up poorly. So, and it moves. I would say this is better paced for the first half than all the other ones, because like it's just, you know, the conclusions are happening and they're boom, 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 boom. Like, it's just like, okay. So I read through very, very quickly. I think I read this whole book in like 4 days.
I read the first half very quickly, and then I spent like a week trying to get through the second half.
Those last
Fucking
300
sucked.
pages, yeah.
That gave me a really hard time. Down to like the last 5 pages, I was still struggling.
Dude, those last 300 pages are rough to get through. Yeah, like it is. We'll get to that because I want to talk about where I think this book actually ends, and then where it ends. And then it like, drags on for like another 350 pages. But, you know, we've talked about this every episode. Meyer is kind of an amateur, right? Like, she'd never really written much before this, blah, blah. Although in that interview Sophie sent me that she does call herself a storyteller before she was a quote-unquote writer. Yeah, this is whatever. I don't need to get into that. All right, so initial thoughts. Let's hit the text. This Malay quote, dude.
Yeah, we got an Edna St. Vincent Millay quote up front. Whoops, dropping shit.
Which I was kind of like, all right, you know. I wrote in my notes, I was like, oh shit. She's putting a Malay quote in this. So what, we went from the Book of Genesis to Romeo and Juliet to Frost to Edna St. Vincent Millay.
Yeah.
She's busting out the literary icons here.
Yeah, which frankly I have no feelings about.
Yeah, it honestly... all right, let's read the quote. Childhood is not from birth to a certain age, and at a certain age the child is grown and puts away childish things. Childhood is the kingdom where nobody dies. And this particular quote, it might be the one quote where it doesn't really come back up much in this book. Whereas in the last 3 books, Meyer kind of used the kind of quote in the front to use his theme, foreshadowing, nod, whatever, you know, normally when you put a quote in the middle of beginning of a novel, it's kind of a nod, maybe some type of nod to the themes, the foreshadowing, whatever you want to do, inspiration.
The fact that
whatever.
everyone is immortal.
Yeah. Childhood is the kingdom where nobody dies. But these vampires are very mature. But yeah, that's all in the lay quotes. So we got 2 poets in this whole series, dude. 2 poets in the beginning. Shit.
Yeah, I don't know. Doesn't Tennyson come up in here?
Yeah, because she reads Tennyson to the baby in her womb because she likes the rhythm or whatever. That's like a thing, which has kind of been, little nods like that have been spaced out throughout the entire series, right? Like little nods to Wuthering Heights or Romeo and Juliet, or yeah,
She reads.
Yeah, Bella's a little bookish nerd, right?
And not that lame stuff either.
Yeah, the classics.
She reads difficult works.
Difficult classical works. Although I have been thinking of it, yeah, like a lot of the kind of 19th century novelists, maybe some of the best novelists that ever lived. Kind of hard to compare with them. But all right. Chapter.
Where do you want to begin?
The first. All right, so right away in this chapter we get, like, the chapter one ends with Bella desperate for sex, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're finally getting the fucking, or like desperate for fucking.
Well, we were already getting that in the last one, right? That was like that was like half the motivation for her accepting an engagement. I want to fuck.
And we know they're getting married because that's already been established in the previous 3 novels. So in the very beginning of this one, it's kind of like wedding prep, right? Like they're like, oh, the occasion's upon us. We have to get everything ready. You can't see the bride, blah, blah, right? The real traditional shit.
But Bella doesn't have to do anything because she doesn't actually want a wedding. And Alice has decided that she's doing everything.
Oh, God. I didn't even think about that, dude. The fact that Bella doesn't want a wedding.
Until all of a sudden she does when it's happening. Because she didn't have to plan anything.
Yeah. That's,
She didn't want it until she wanted it.
maybe accurate for a teenage girl or a younger woman.
Everyone is talking shit, gossiping, saying that Bella's probably pregnant and that's why they're getting married.
Oh, right.
And Bella has a car that is given the name the Mercedes Guardian, which I learned from the interview is not a real car.
Yeah.
Clever, Stephenie.
Yeah, and then the whole thing is Edward gives her this car that's been like bulletproof glass and like siding, like basically the type of like outfitting you would give to like Fords or whatever when they drive like politicians around or something, or like military.
Yeah.
You know, like at embassies or whatever, would they have like GMCs, but all the GMCs are outfitted with like bulletproof glass and like all the shit that would protect important people that would, I guess, have assassination attempts or something on them, or try to be blown up in a car bomb or something. So he buys her this like militarized Mercedes that like could survive a bomb if it was planted under the road or something. At least keep the people from dying inside. Not that the car would survive. But yeah, the first chapter ends with Bella basically desperate for sex. And this is, as Sophie mentioned, like, we kind of get the end of the love triangle in this book right away. The love triangle's kind of, that drama's over, and then we get the marriage.
Well, it's not quite over because Jake is like on the run now. Well, he's not like on the run, but he's like away. He's like living his best wolf life because he can't handle that Bella's getting married.
Right. Speak now or forever hold your peace. If anyone sees a reason why these two shall not wed, speak
And the
now.
wedding takes a long, long, long time.
Alright, so Bella's begging to be fucked by Edward at the end of chapter 1. And then in chapter 2, we give Edward being a little bitch about fucking, like he doesn't want to.
Yeah, it gets kind of hot and heavy.
Dude, page 26, right? So this is
Go
Bella.
back a page.
Okay.
Go back a page.
25? Because that's where it starts, but yeah. Go.
Edward had spent most of his life rejecting any kind of physical gratification. I was like, any? Really? Like, do vampires not need to bust a load every now and again? Is that not a thing? I'm just as a curiosity.
I guess not, dude. I mean, considering that these vampires...
Also, did he get to 17 and, like, not once? 17-year-old boy, never jerked it.
It would be too violent, dude. He would hurt himself, I guess. He would break off that marble.
I mean, before he was he would break off his marble dick.
Yeah.
No, I mean while he was like human.
Right. Yeah, I guess there's that. I mean, you would like. I mean, we all pretend that, right? We pretend that like during like when was Edward supposed to be like kind of alive at the end of the Victorian era? So like maybe, but you know that's all a lie, right? I mean, people were still fucking and like going to whorehouses. They just couldn't do it publicly or talk about it. But yeah.
Then we get some heavy foreshadowing.
Yeah. At the bottom of page 25, Bella, "Wait," I said, gripping his shoulders and hugging myself close to him. I kicked one leg free and wrapped it around his waist. "Practice makes perfect." He chuckled. "Well, we should be fairly close to perfection by this point then, shouldn't we? Have you slept at all in the last month?" Blah, blah, blah. And then on page 26, I thought over my words, realized what he would have heard in them. "Bella," he whispered. "Don't start this again," I said. "A deal's a deal. I don't know. It's too hard to concentrate when you're with me like this. I can't think straight. I won't be able to control myself. You'll get hurt. I'll be fine. Bella, shh." I pressed my lips to his to stop his panic attack. I'd heard it before. He wasn't getting out of this deal, not after insisting I marry him first. Insisting he marry him first.
Yeah, so they're getting married so they can fuck. But so that she can be pure, you know?
But not at Bella's insistence, at Edward's insistence.
He's worried that if she has sex, well, and this is the thing, like, he keeps being like, it's dangerous, but then it's also like, but once we're married, it's okay. And there was that line last time about, like, I'm concerned for your soul, basically.
Right.
So this is all just, like, I don't know, him making sure that she doesn't go to hell for having sex with a 100-year-old vampire.
Yeah, pre-marriage.
Premarital.
After marriage, yeah.
Yeah.
After marriage, it's all good. You can giggle about being bruised up, dude, like that.
Yeah, and I know. Well, yeah.
We'll get there, yeah.
We'll get there. But, and then Edward gets baby fever. It's like, yeah, well, Charlie was imagining that you were probably pregnant, and that's why we're getting married. So they, like, talk about when they told Charlie that they were engaged, and Charlie was thinking, like, oh, are you pregnant? And she was like, fucking no. And now Ed's all like, I wish he was right.
Yeah, and this gives, I mean, we're going to talk about this,
me a
the whole,
child.
yeah, like the whole novel will say this, but like we've been saying this all 3 episodes when we've been doing this. This is the 4th now. You know, Charlie is misused. A lot of the characters are underutilized in this, particularly Jacob for being one of the main characters, but Charlie especially is just such a shell that is like brought out whenever it's convenient or needed, and then he just kind of disappears again. There's no tension, there's no hiccup or anything like that that's caused by her dad, who doesn't understand, who's also, you know, the chief of police in the town.
Yeah, which is weird because he has more, like, I don't know, he seems more solid to me than like Edward or Bella, who just really do seem like shells, like they're just sort of placeholders for a fantasy.
Yeah. I just mean in terms of like when they try to, and you know, we'll talk about this when they reveal to Charlie towards the end of the novel here about the kind of fantasy animals and creatures. Just, you know, we said this every episode, tends to misuse these opportunities to create real serious tension and drama for a reader, and just they tend to fall flat, and Charlie is just always falling flat. Like his objections should cause drama, but they never do. It's always just fine. And like he just needs to talk to Jacob and he's fine. But yeah, that's gonna keep coming back up. So yeah, Edward doesn't want to fuck. He's being a little bitch about it. Or I guess in this fantasy world, he's being a gentleman about it.
Yeah.
And we
Which,
get,
like, in real life, we would just be like, dude, what's wrong with you?
yeah. And we get a little bit of foreshadowing with like a demon baby dream that Bella has, right?
Yeah, we get that quite a bit.
So we get the pregnancy foreshadowing. She's having dreams like she did in the second book where she's like scared of getting old. But this time it's about like a demon child killing everyone she loves. Like a vampire baby.
Yeah, so they get married.
And I wanted to talk about the wedding. Like we get the description, right? Chapter 3 is the big day. Is what it's
Yeah.
called. And that's, wedding day is what we always call it, whatever. My question was, is the wedding fan service?
Oh, just like for the fans? Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I assume this is like supposed to be like part of this girlish fantasy where, like, I don't know, because Stephenie Meyer spends a lot of time like describing the smells, like the floral scents and the decorations, and making it like this perfect thing that weddings are not.
Yeah, I mean, let's be fair. It's real fantasy, right? Most I mean, maybe not. I mean, most young women will have some type of fantasy of the wedding. Usually
Sure.
from a very young age even, right? Like you start fantasizing about that and what'll it be? What do you want? What kind of flowers, colors, all that, right? So there's
It
that.
doesn't have
and
the same pull as the romantic rush.
Right, yeah, the romantic rush. Even though this is, and I guess, this is the concluding book, right? So it's kind of like the conclusion to the romantic rush is, well, you can't, you made the romantic love life between these two, married now. Kind of this, the agreement between two people, right? Blah, blah, blah. But yeah, so I was like, all right, as I was reading the wedding, I was a little bit bored because one, weddings don't interest me. I mean, I like weddings. I like going to weddings and like dancing and getting drunk and like all that and like, clapping and being emotional when everybody's giving speeches and that's a fun time, right? And then my wife and I go and dance, blah, blah, blah. But like, it just wasn't like for me reading this whole chapter on the wedding was kind of a slog. Like, it was kind of like
It felt very long for me.
it was long, and that's why I was like fan service. And you can see this in the movie too, right? In Breaking Dawn Part 1, they extend the wedding scene for like 20 minutes. Like it's like
so long.
very long, and it
feels way too long.
Same writer wrote all 5 movies, Melissa Rosenberg. So we've been talking about that. So and I understand why she
Was
drew
it
it
the
out.
same director the whole time?
Same director for the last 2, but I think they had a different director every movie. But the
Okay.
last 2 were filmed together and all that, so it makes sense to have the same director.
Okay. But yeah, we have that wedding. It feels like kind of bullshit. His perfect face was almost severe with the depth of his emotion.
And at the wedding, we get Jacob's blow up.
Oh, you didn't like the part where Edward holds out his hand and Charlie took my hand and, in a symbol as old as the world, placed it in Edward's.
What page is that?
49. Top of 49. In a symbol as old as the world. What clock are we running on?
Well, right, we're in the year 2022 of our Lord Jesus Christ. So 2,000 years since Christianity dominated the world. I would imagine.
I
that's what
saw
she means.
just how silly I'd been for fearing this. As if it were an unwanted birthday gift or an embarrassing exhibition like the prom.
Yeah.
So she's all pumped now to be married. And then, yeah, we get Jacob. He shows up.
And we goes into the next chapter. So we have like 2 chapters of wedding, and then reception is the following chapter. And that's when Jacob shows up. He'd been missing for a long time, blah, blah, blah. And then we have this little bit of like a blow up. Like, Jacob gets like mad at the same
he gets
things.
super mad.
At the
But
same
he
thing
gets
he's been
in
mad at.
particular. No. But like this is special because he gets mad that they're gonna try to fuck while she's human. Like that's specifically what he's bothered by. He's like, it's dangerous.
It's
He'll
disgusting.
break you.
Yeah. And then like Paige, like, so he shows up and it's like really like Bella's all happy because again she's trying to have her cake and eat it too, and eventually gets that. I mean, that's the ending of the story. But so Jacob's pissed at that, and then the thing I pointed out, page 65 was the one that stuck out to me in terms of them blowing up, and this is like Sophie said, him getting mad. What's the holdup, right? And then she says, I just didn't want to spend my honeymoon writhing in pain. He's like, you'd rather spend it how? Playing checkers? Haha. Very funny. Kidding, Bells, but honestly, I don't see the point. You can't have a real honeymoon with your vampire, so why go through the motions? Call a spade a spade. This isn't the first time you put this off. That's a good thing, though, he said, suddenly earnest. Don't be embarrassed about it. I'm not putting anything off, I snapped, and yes, I can have a real honeymoon. I can do anything I want. Butt out. He stopped our slow circling abruptly because they're dancing, listeners, remember. For a moment, I wondered if I'd finally noticed the music change, and I scrambled in my head for a way to patch up our little tiff before he said goodbye to me. We shouldn't part on this note, and then his eyes bulged wide with a strange kind of confused horror. What? He gasped. What did you say? About what? Jake, what's wrong? What do you mean, have a real honeymoon, while you're still human? Are you kidding? That's a sick joke, Bella.
His enormous hands gripped the tops of my arms, wrapping all the way around, fingers overlapping. Yeah, so
Jacob's all happy for her getting married, blah, blah, but not about them fucking.
But it was good that they were going to put it off because, you know, for as long as she's not a vampire, they won't be fucking. Is that what he was saying? It's a good thing.
This was my thing, right? And this is why I asked, like, so, like, Jacob blowing up at the wedding is like, I don't believe it. It's not enough. Just like everything else that happens in this series, there's really not enough.
Because now you're picturing Taylor Lautner, and there's nothing realistic about him having a fit of anger.
Yeah, and I just didn't. It seemed so out of place. And when you think about all that Jacob's been put through by like loving Bella kind of thing, and we've talked about this on all the episodes, that Jacob's written kind of with the most sympathy out of all of the characters in the love triangle. Meyer clearly gives him the most kind of sympathy for you to like be like,
Yeah, I think he's maybe one of the best characters in the book.
yeah, like the most well written and developed kind of character. But and you know, that's not saying much compared to everything else in this book, but still. My question here was, why does the wedding feel like the end of something? Because I did feel like it was like the end of something.
Of excitement?
Yeah, could be. Although, I'd say Jacob's section in here, like 250 pages in here, is the most exciting thing in all four novels.
It feels like the end of feeling excited about Ed and Bella's relationship.
Right.
That's what
'Cause I
it
guess,
felt like
yeah.
to me.
And it is the end of something, right? I guess it's the end of that, right?
It's like, well, it's happening. And
Right.
it's like you're sort of, you know, moving very quickly toward, you know, what the predetermined ending is going to be, which we all know that she's like, you know, they've set a date for her to become a vampire. Right? So it's like Bella's getting everything she wants now. There aren't a whole lot of questions left on the table. There's not a lot of will they, won't they left on the table. Like, it feels like the end of having any questions about what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing left.
Yeah.
Because this is a romance novel and not like an exciting, you know, this is how my dad found out that there were werewolves and I became a vampire and I had to like hide from my dad and slowly break it to him and like, you know, I don't know, whatever the fuck else. But it was like supposed to be a romance novel and like you can only, I don't know, thrive on that vibe for so long, I guess.
Yeah.
Like once you hit the sort of happy ever after, it kind of...
Yeah. And the speeches at the wedding, dude, in the movie.
Oh, in the movie. I was like, oh my god, there are speeches. Oh my
Yeah.
god, everyone's an asshole.
Yeah, and they weren't funny.
And oh my god, why'd you have the friend you hate speak at your wedding?
The wedding speeches, I was just like, oh my god.
It was just to add levity to what was otherwise like going to be a very, very boring movie.
Right.
Like I think they were just trying to add shit to make it less boring than it was.
And to draw
failed.
out that runtime, yeah. I was just like, man, these speeches just, oh god. But anyway, whatever, you draw those out. It was like a little montage of speeches that really are dated and corny. And are, I mean, that's one thing I can't stand at weddings anyway. Like when I go, if people get up there and start making like dumb jokes or like quips or... it just drives me crazy when people do that. I don't know. It just gets under my skin. And I get people are nervous about making speeches or whatever in front of people, but
I'm not a wedding guy.
don't lean on the easy humor to ease your anxiety about it, because it always just comes off a little inappropriate or a little like, I don't know. That's not even mentioning the fact, you know, how many weddings I've seen where like whoever's supposed to be giving the speech is just hammered by that point, and it's, you know, that's a different thing too. But yeah. All right, should we get to the fucking scene?
Isle Esme.
Oh,
So
god.
again, Bella doesn't know anything about what's happening. Her honeymoon has been selected and handled for her. And they show up to an island somewhere. Where is it? Like off the coast of South America? Yeah.
Coast of Brazil, so the kind of east coast of South America there.
Yeah.
Private island, they make it, blah, blah, private island, whatever. Vampires are always wealthy, blah, blah. So, like, all right, the scene where they fuck, right?
They accumulate wealth well.
Yeah, well, if you're alive for hundreds of years, you better. You're doing something wrong, yeah. They fuck, right? And it was kind of a disappointing fuck scene for 3 novels worth, like 1,500 pages worth of leading
Yeah,
up to
because
this.
there's no real scene.
Yeah. So the thing, all right, so I marked page 87, kind of that middle paragraph.
Oh, I started writing naked at the top of pages when she was like taking her clothes off. I was like, oh shit, she's getting naked. There's this whole scene about Bella trying to figure out what kind of lingerie she should be wearing. And this is all very difficult for her to figure out, and she feels overwhelmed. I assume this is written just for young females again. And because she's not like other girls, she's like, whatever, I'm just gonna go out in a towel.
Oh yeah, the getting naked in the ocean on the private island. Now that is sexy. Like that's a sexy trope. You're on a private island where you can just be nude on the beach because it's like private, blah blah blah.
And after so many times of trying to rip her clothes off and take his clothes off, she's now afraid of getting naked, which I'm not gonna knock because that's, you know, fair.
That's true for everybody, dude. It's not like, yeah, like everybody's gonna be, when you're seeing somebody naked for the first time, usually about to have sex with them, right? That's usually the circumstance where you see somebody that you're interested in naked. And it's like, it's just an awkward thing, right? Like, it's so vulnerable that everybody feels awkward in the situation. It's hard to you know. But the way that it's written, it could have been way sexier, considering this is a romance novel.
Could've been
They're finally
way
married.
sexier.
Yeah, and you know, whatever. She wants to be like, oh, they have to be married. Okay, now they're married. Romance novel. They've been wanting to do this for 1,500 pages, and now we get like literally nothing. We get no scene of it.
Yeah.
The thing.
She just walks out into the water with him, and then I guess they're like making out, and they're naked, and then he pulled us gently into deeper water.
How about that movie scene where it shows them like in the water, like banging?
Yeah, that's way better.
Yeah, with the moon in the background and all that.
But I was like, I don't know.
Banging in the ocean water by the moonlight.
Kristen Stewart gave me some weird vibes in this movie. It's like, she looks too tiny. What's up with this?
And it is weird because I think when these were filmed and then like, you know, they broke up, Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart like broke up in the middle. I don't think of, at least in the middle of the releases, like from the year, I think 2011 was when part 1 was released, and then part 2 was released in 2012. Part of that drama was that Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson broke up, and I think Stewart publicly kind of cheated on him in like a very public way. So it was like very kind of a sour, you know, tabloids going crazy over it. So there was
shame.
that.
I really like Shovel Face.
The shovel face. Pat.
Yeah, that's what they call him in the honest trailers for the movies.
Yeah.
I really like him. I think he's hot in spite of his shovel face. I mean, it's accurate. It's an accurate description. He's hot anyway.
All right. So here's the night after, right? We don't get the scene, but we get the morning after where she wakes up, right? And Edward's
he fucked
like,
her up.
Yeah, he fucked her
She's
up.
all fucked up.
They had hot BDSM sex or whatever. But
He had to
yeah.
bite a pillow.
So she says, my first instinct, the product of a lifetime of insecurities, was to wonder what I had done wrong. I thought through everything that had happened, but I couldn't find any sour note in the memory. It had all been simpler than I'd expected. We'd fit together like corresponding pieces, made to match up. This had given me a secret satisfaction. We were compatible physically, as well as all the other ways. Fire and ice. Hey, throwback to Robert Frost right there. Fire and ice, somehow existing together without destroying each other. More proof that I belonged with him. We'd fit together like corresponding pieces, made to match up.
Yeah.
Somebody was listening to a little Postal Service, I think, that Stephenie Meyer was playing.
Yeah, it makes sense.
That line, right? Corresponding pieces, like,
I mean, do you have to get that creative to come up with
No.
that? I'm happy to give Ben Gibbard all of the props in the world, but come on. That's not that special. But she was probably listening to it.
I'm thinking it's a sign. Yeah, dude.
Anyway, he fucked her up. She's all bruised and shit and sore
Yeah,
because
dude,
she
she
just
gets
got fucked ragged.
All right, dude. I got the. It's on page 89. 89 after like and I highlighted the paragraph and I said what the fuck, it's right under the dusting of feathers. It's kind of like right in the middle of page 89. Under the dusting of feathers, large purplish bruises were beginning to blossom across the pale skin of my arm. My eyes followed the trail they made up to my shoulder and then down across my ribs. I pulled my hand free to poke at a discoloration on my left forearm, watching it fade where I touched and then reappear. It throbbed a little. And I was just like, oh shit, like they just had some like fucking vampire BDSM shit. I was like, LOL, what the fuck? and the way they show this in the movie is very awkward too. Oh, you know, we didn't even talk about that, dude, the bed frame.
Yeah, well, that happens in the book too.
Yeah, dude, but the
It's
way
just
they do
stupid in the movie.
Yeah, dude.
It's so stupid in the movie. He just like grabs part of the bed frame and like pulls it down and it just snaps off.
Oh my god, dude, it was so
I mean,
was...
like, we've had plenty of lore of vampires and non-vampires fucking a house to rubble.
Right.
Like we've seen Buffy.
But yeah,
And
dude,
he
the
just
movie.
like, you know, broke part of the bed frame and he bit a pillow.
Yeah, dude, the scene. The reason I found the movie so goofy, like that scene in the movie, fuck, I mean, like, because you could tell it was kind of like a breakaway thing, right? Like it was a set piece that like was designed for Robert Pattinson to kind of easily break it apart, like in the scene, right? So like you can like, he like grabs the bed frame and when he squeezes. It just like a piece comes off in his hand and then the whole thing just collapses and like they start like giggling or whatever. Like, oh god, dude. Oh god. Oh god. Where am I seeing this? Yeah, I started laughing when he broke the bed frame, dude. It was so fucking goofy. Like it was just so goofy. And they really drag out that losing the virginity thing in the movie. Like,
Yeah.
I'm talking like maybe 10 minutes of just like silent shots of Kristen Stewart, not naked, but like naked, tangled up in the bed sheets. So, you know, and they just have like 10 minutes of shots like that, like interspersed in the whole seat the whole time they're in like the Esme Island in the movie.
And
really
then,
dragging that out.
And then Ed is super emo about it. He's like, how bad did I hurt you? And then he's super emo for like the next however long. And she's just, you know, prancing around in lingerie. Being like,
She's
fuck
like,
me, please.
Yeah, she's like, I like getting banged up.
Please, please. Put your vampire dick in me.
Yeah, dude. And isn't that when? And then that's what Edward is like. They need to be abstinent until she's a vampire, so they have to go back to abstinence or something. They like insist until she's changed and can handle the rough, hot vampire sex without being like bruised.
Yeah. And then we find out, is it she's like asking her, or she's asking him how it was for him.
Oh, the sex.
And then we find out that Ed was, you know, talking to his family to get all the sex tips.
Sex tips from the family, as one does, right?
As one does.
Bella begging for sex after she woke up from a nightmare.
I spoke to Carlisle after you and I made our bargain, hoping he could help me. Of course, he warned me that this would be very dangerous for you. He had faith in me, though. Faith I didn't deserve. I also asked him what I should expect. Like... Yeah, so he's talking to his vampire daddy about, you know, what sex is.
What sex is and what it's like, yeah. Dude, the thing that when so you mentioned Bella begging for sex here, the scene on page 107, and this is when Edward's insisting they can't have sex until she's turned because he's scared of hurting her. And, you know, Edward's like, I can't, Bella, I can't. His moan was agonized. Please, I said, my plea muffled against his skin. Please, Edward. She's like begging him to fuck after she woke up from this nightmare.
Oh, yeah. No, it wasn't a nightmare. It was such a good dream. It was such a good dream of them fucking.
And then she, like, Edward's mad that they fucked. Which my question, was that a fantasy?
No, they totally fucked.
But I mean, like, a fantasy of, like Edward being
having
upset.
a dude being like, no. That was like... I don't know. It feels like for half of this book, Edward is our only true antagonist. He's like both a hero and the antagonist in that we want them to fuck and he's like, no. And then they do and he's like, we shouldn't have. And, you know, know. Through all of this, we also are starting to get like, man, I'm so hungry. I ate so much, even though it was definitely enough for 2 people. It's like, okay. Bella's vampire pregnant.
Bella getting pregnant, yeah. And right at page 120 is when I was like, I have a suspicion that she's pregnant when she throws up the chicken.
Yeah, I mean, on page 97, it says, I ate everything, though he'd made enough for 2.
Right. They keep saying, oh, she's so hungry, she's eating for 2, blah, 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 right?
Yeah. So I spent a lot of time talking about her eating.
And then them banging and her getting bruised up. And then we get the pregnancy. You know, that's the big bomb that's dropped, right? At the end of the first section.
And then it becomes a book about abortion.
Yeah, I guess I didn't. I mean, I guess I made that connection, but I didn't really.
Dude, they keep calling it the fetus. I'm fighting about whether to call it the fetus or the baby.
The fetus.
Fetus!
The fetus. Oh, the fetus. The fetus. Damn it. Jesus, man. The fucking fetus. But I guess we could look at it that way. This is some commentary on it, or what would you say?
I mean, I don't fucking know. I am hesitant to read into it, but it is also really hard not to read it that way. Like a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
Even though it's some kind of like if I were 16 reading this, I don't think I would read it that way. Maybe I would. I don't know. I don't remember. I don't think I did. Although I did think this one was stupid. I remember thinking a lot about this book was stupid.
I mean, a lot about this entire series is fucking stupid. It's dumb. The whole thing's dumb.
Yeah,
but,
I don't know. Now reading it, it's like this baby is worth more than my own life kind of thing. It's hard not to read it at least a little bit that way.
Yeah.
When half of the argument is, it's gonna kill her.
Yeah, it's gonna kill her, blah, blah, blah. We don't know what's
It's
gonna
not
happen.
an it, it's a baby.
Yeah, and that's really what it's what irritated me a little bit about the movie was that they cram all of Jacob's stuff into the first movie, and Jacob's portion of the best part of this entire 2,500 pages we just read of this Twilight Saga is book 2 in Breaking Dawn, where it's all Jacob's perspective. That is the most.
Also worth mentioning. Yeah, we start to all of a sudden, now that Bella knows she's pregnant, she wants this baby and she has to have it.
She calls Rosalie.
Well, she says, I wanted him like I wanted air to breathe. Not a choice, a necessity.
Right.
So that kind of language comes up a lot.
Yeah, and we could, if we're being generous, right? She's trying to capture motherhood, maybe the connection that a woman has to the thing literally growing inside of her, blah, blah, blah kind of thing. So if we're being okay, she's trying to show us that this kind of new connection that this young girl suddenly discovered, right? One of the things of being, right, is that you get this experience or whatever. I don't know. It's very, I mean, we could say it's very Mormon, very Christian, whatever you want to say about that shit.
Yeah, I mean, either way, it doesn't bother me too much. I was just sort of hopeful for a really gruesome pregnancy sequence. So, yeah. But yeah, Jake's part should not have been, I don't know. I think that the movies could have spent more time there. But also, how do you? Because, for half of that, he's a wolf. And we know from the movie that when they try to do that, when they're all in wolf form, communicating with one another in their minds, it's so bad. It's so lame. It felt
hard.
very. At one point, I don't remember if this was the point in the movie where Bill said this, but we were watching it, and Bill was like, "You know how Ben Shapiro has like that company that's making movies? It's kind of what this feels like."
Oh god.
Yeah, I think it was like one of the big Jacob moments that I'm sure we'll get to momentarily. Oh, do you want to talk about the the housekeeper who like knows Bella's pregnant and suspects and is like freaking out? I guess it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to matter at any point.
It doesn't. It's just like giving us some ominous vibe because she comes to clean up and she's like, before Bella knows she's pregnant, and she's like all terrified for her. But yeah, she doesn't matter. And then we get book 2.
Book 2 with Jacob, which is the best part of any of these books.
Before we start book 2, I gotta pee.
All right.
I'm gonna grab a drink too, but I'm gonna volume up while I pee.
Fucking Shakespeare.
Midsummer Night's Dream.
We're back to Shakespeare.
Yeah, what page is this? I just lost it.
Page 139 is when book 2 starts.
Oh, nice.
And part of me, when I started seeing that, like, in the end of the last book, the end of Eclipse, Stephenie Meyer introduces this kind of last chapter as kind of an epilogue of Jacob. And in the movie, they move this to the beginning of Breaking Dawn Part 1. But at the end of Eclipse, Jacob gets the invitation to the wedding and then runs off in the woods, and that's what starts his kind of, he's hanging out in the woods for a couple months, like brooding, essentially.
Yeah.
And it changes to his perspective. And then in this book is the only other time we get a large chunk dedicated to another character's perspective. And it made me, again, just kind of be like, yeah, this is amateurish, because if this was like a huge sweeping saga, we should have been going between all these characters' perspectives. Like, we should have been getting Jacob's perspective from book 1. We should have been getting Edward's
it would have been
perspective from book
so
1.
much better. It would have been such a better book.
Dude,
it would have been a better
about
series.
Thinking about it right now, didn't she just release a book that's like the retelling of the first book, but through Edward's perspective?
No,
Or a couple years ago.
As I understood it, she just like switched the gender roles. So it's a girl vampire and a human guy.
But it's the same story.
I don't know.
Yeah,
That's what gets it. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, we're not reading that one, listeners. So
No, I'm not doing it. I mean, I might do it, but I'm not going to tell you about it.
We're just gonna do the original series.
Keep it private. I'm going to keep living my private shame.
Yeah. And then, so book 2 starts and we get A Midsummer Night's Dream from Shakespeare. Those that don't know, one of his more famous plays, although if you're listening to this podcast, you probably already knew that, because our listeners are nice and smart, all 3 of them. And the quote is, "And yet, to say the truth, reason and love keep little company together nowadays." So we go from Malay back to Shakespeare. And the preface to this one, dude.
Yeah.
Life sucks and then you die. Yeah, I should be so lucky. Jacob. Emo boy Jacob.
With all of his emo boy chapter titles. Waiting for the damn fight to start already.
Yeah, his chapter titles are much more aggressive and longer than like Bella's. All that kind of stuff. And this is also what kind of makes me have a lot of sympathy for Jacob. Like, it is, and reading these, we talked a little bit about the Edward versus Jacob phenomenon when this was very popular and the movies were being released. And, part of the marketing, they were selling like t-shirts, right? Like Team Edward or Team Jacob. Reading these books now, because I'd never read them before, is like, they really used marketing to amp that up more than the book did. So like the marketing is like better than what the book actually gave us. So, and that happens a lot. This happens a lot in movies, people say, right? Like movies in the contemporary world right now is like, they're marketed so well that once you sit down and actually watch it, you're like, they marketed this like it was great. It wasn't so great, right? Like the marketing like kind of raises your expectations in a certain way, so then you're like disappointed when they don't meet that. But the thing I wanted to talk about first in this Jacob section, Cuck Edward the Cuck.
Wait, when does that come in? Because there's some stuff I need to talk about first.
Okay, yeah. Shit, why didn't I write this page number down?
Because I think that we need to discuss that imprinting is back in a big way.
Yeah. I knew that was going to matter when I'm glad that matters, because they spent a whole section in the third book explaining that. So I'm glad that it came back at some point.
Importantly, we find out that you can imprint on children.
Right.
But maybe, yeah, let me know where you want to start, because there's one of, well, you let me know. You let me know where you want to start.
Shit, I didn't write down the page of this. Did you? When Edward is begging Jacob to fuck his wife?
That doesn't happen yet. That's not until 180.
Okay, 180. All right.
So we're going to talk about a couple other things first.
Yeah.
First off, the most straightforward and maybe honest discussion as it relates to sex is just like made in passing at the beginning.
What page?
Oh wait, maybe. Yeah, this is right before that happens. So it's 174.
Speak on it.
So this is right when he sees Bella for the first time and he discovers that she's pregnant. There was no way she could be pregnant. Not that pregnant. Except she was. I didn't want to see this. Didn't want to think about this. I didn't want to imagine him inside her.
And is that him referring to the fetus or Edward?
I'm assuming Edward. There's no
Yeah.
other way anyone is fucking reading that. I mean, because he follows it up with, I didn't want to know that something I hated so much had taken root in the body I loved. So that, I guess, is referring to the baby. But I refuse to believe that he is not thinking about his penis here.
Edward's penis?
You don't get to say, imagine him inside her, and not imagine him inside her. It's
But
like
he
the
imagined
closest we get to saying the word sex in this book.
That's true. There's not much sex. Like, sex is never mentioned.
They
in this
literally
book,
don't say
right?
the word sex.
Right.
They never say the word sex.
Yes, very Puritan.
And this was the closest we got. And I was like, thank you, Jacob. For being fucking normal about it. We also discover in this part of the book that you can imprint on a baby. But it's not like that.
Well, we discover that in Eclipse, right?
Do we?
Yeah, because Quill or somebody imprints on a baby, or Embry. And then Claire, right? The girl's
That
name is
happens
Claire.
in that one?
It happens in Eclipse, and then
I thought that happens in this one.
in this one we see him taking care of Claire because he imprinted on her. So he's like
Okay.
babysitting her basically. And that's when Jacob keeps insisting, it's not sexual. It's definitely not about sex.
It's not like that. I just want to make sure she's safe.
It's about being whatever
And then
she
eventually, when she's old enough, maybe we'll do stuff.
needs. Yeah, it's about grooming.
Stephenie Meyer's Defense of Child Brides.
Defense of child bride. Well, she is Mormon. But yeah, it's not sexual. We're just whatever she needs. A protector, a friend, a father, a brother. And then, we
yeah.
bang. And then, we fuck eventually.
maybe, like when she's old enough.
Yeah. Once she gets her period.
Oh, wait. I'll just take care of her when she's a child, like I'm family. And then maybe someday we'll have sex. And be together forever.
Oh god, dude, this is fucking Twilight. Yeah. So anyway, I was glad that at least imprinting mattered a little bit, even though it doesn't come in until like after we go back to Bella's perspective, so like after Jacob's kind of thing.
Yeah, but page 180.
Page 180, the cuck.
Edward living his best cuck life. So Edward's all desperate now because Bella's clearly dying. She's all like haggard and shit because the baby's like eating her from the inside out.
Right, and it's like half vampire, so it's like when it kicks, it's like breaking her ribs and shit.
Yeah. And then
They can't get through the embryonic sac because it's like vampire skin. You can't put like a syringe through it or anything to get fluid. It's like too tough. You have to have vampire teeth to cut through it. No knife or blade sharp enough. But anyway, Edward basically comes out, right? So Jacob goes to the Cullens' house because he's like all worried. And then Edward comes out looking distraught to talk to him and is basically says, please bang my wife.
Yeah. You can offer her what she wants. Yeah. So
You
he's
can
like
offer her
all
she wants.
desperate man
Yeah.
now.
He's like, he wasn't making any sense. Part of the crazy? I don't care about anything but keeping her alive, he said, suddenly focused now. If it's a child she wants, she can have it. She can have 6 babies. Anything she wants. He paused for one beat. She can have puppies if that's what it takes. He met my stare for a moment and his face was frenzied under the thin layer of control. My hard scowl crumbled as I processed his words and I felt my mouth pop open in shock.
You have
But
to
not-
see. You have to make her see reason.
Have to make her see reason, Jacob. She won't listen to me anymore. Rosalie's always there, feeding her insanity, encouraging her, protecting her. No, protecting it. Bella's life means nothing to her. The noise coming from my throat sounded like I was choking. What was he saying? That Bella should, what, have a baby? With me? What? How? Was he giving her up? Or did he think that she wouldn't mind being shared?
And then he says, whichever, whatever keeps her alive. Because again, Edward can read minds. So Jacob can just think things and then Edward will respond to them. So that was a fun one.
Please bang my wife, dude.
Bang my wife, please.
I texted you, dude. Oh my god, dude.
I couldn't
Cuck
think about
Edward.
what he was suggesting. It was too much. Impossible. Wrong. Sick. Borrowing Bella for the weekends and then returning her Monday morning like a rental movie? So messed up. So tempting.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, dude. Jacob wanted this fantasy, or I guess.
But the images came anyway. I'd fantasized about Bella that way too many times, back when there was still a possibility of us. And then long after, it was clear that the fantasies would only leave festering sores because there was no possibility, none at all. I hadn't been able to help myself then. I couldn't stop myself now. Bella in my arms. Bella sighing my name.
Oh yeah. So Edward is basically offering his wife as a sex kink, and Jacob is like, I can't do that.
Oh, yeah, fuck my wife, please. That's where we left off.
So, alright, so bang my wife, please. Yeah, I was like, what the fuck is this? But whatever, I was just going with it at this point. I was like, okay, fine. Like,
No, this makes it fun.
Yeah, alright.
This brings back the drama. I'm for it. I'm like, yes. Complicate things for me.
Right.
Please. Because Bella's being a dumb martyr bitch, and I'm so bored of it. And, like, we're only seeing it through Jacob's eyes at this point, too, so it's extra boring to watch her be a martyr. I mean, it's boring when she does it too, but like watching from the outside is extra annoying. It makes her feel even less like a character.
And there was a point on page 197 where I was just like, wait a minute, like, and this is where Jacob like sees her, right, and all that kind of stuff, right? Like sees the baby hurting her. She's like bruised up in her abdomen and like a protruding, baby bump stomach, larger than it should be.
Oh yeah, this is after Jacob promises that he'll kill Edward if Bella dies.
Right. But my thing, so at page 197 where Bella says she loves you to Jake. Says, "Bye," she whispered behind me. "Love you, Jake." And I was just like, are we still at this point? So we're still seriously at this thing where Bella's married to somebody else, pregnant with his kid, and then is talking to Jacob and just casually being like, "I love you, Jacob, but as a friend."
Yeah.
Like, we're still doing that.
I mean, dude, because we've seen that enough now that we're used to it, and like we don't really question it that much. What I question more is Bella's sudden declaration of faith. "I don't know yet, Jake, but I feel that this is all going somewhere good. Hard to see as it is now. I guess you could call it faith." It's like, oh shit, Bella's a Mormon now.
She's a convert, dude. She married into the family, and now Vampire is converting.
Yeah, she's a believer now.
She's still saying he loved Jake, and Jake has to deal with that, right? Bella's being mean. Jacob has alpha blood in his veins. What do we think of that?
Oh, that's fun.
Jacob has alpha blood in his veins, and it's really... the way they show in the movie is not good. Like, the way
It is not good.
Yeah. Like him kind of rebelling against Sam.
But this was fun, because that was, a part of the story that was laid down. Like, that he was supposed to be the alpha, but he didn't want it,
Right.
Jon Snow style. I never wanted it.
Yeah.
McQueen.
Yeah. And it's just another one of those things that's like, oh, here's a great moment for tension and drama, and then it just never happens. So, Jacob breaks away from the pack, and it turns out it's fine. Turns out that nothing bad happens. There's no rivalry between Sam and Jacob. In fact, they get along smashingly, right?
Yeah, there's tension for a moment, but then that quickly sort of dies.
Like everything else does in this novel.
Well, so the wolves find out about the baby. They want to destroy the baby. And Jake's like, no. And suddenly he's like Carlisle's biggest fan.
That's what I mean. So like the actual change in a character is the one we get from Jacob. Jacob gets the most sympathy, like he's the best written, and we get the actual change in character. Jacob has to overcome this prejudice. I guess Edward does too, but we see it from Jacob's perspective more, right? So Jacob has to overcome this, thousands of years of prejudice against vampires in order to, not kill the woman or hurt the woman he loves, blah, blah, blah. So we get the most change out of him too. I think that's why I would say that like I kept kind of wanting to sympathize with Jacob, just because if we talk about like structurally what causes you to have sympathy for a character, well, Jacob has it all, and all the other characters kind of don't. You would expect to have.
He
a little
feels
bit
the
more.
most developed. He feels
Yeah.
like the most like a real person instead
you
of
would-
the fantasy of a person.
Yeah,
Because
and
he's like not entirely good.
and you would think that
with that
like,
sexual assault on his record, we know he's not a good boy.
right. And you would think that we would get more of that from Bella, but this is why I always say Bella's such a passive character, because she like I don't know, she just
Because she doesn't make things happen. Things happen
Right.
to her.
things happen
That's
to her.
literally
She
the
doesn't-
definition of being
Yeah.
passive. Like she, and she also just isn't like a real person. We don't see any of the like messy complexity of being a real person in her or in Edward.
Yeah. We don't see any of that.
They just like look at each other longingly and then make out and then say that they'll be together forever. And
And the vampire baby is craving blood.
oh yeah, which was, oh my god, dude, it pissed me off so much that it took the fucking werewolf, all these fucking vampires, she's pregnant with a half vampire, there's a vampire doctor here, and at no point, as this baby is clearly dying and Bella's clearly dying, like that, you know, like she's all like scrawny and like has like her eyes are all like sunken into her face and shit, and she's just ugly now,
Yeah.
you know. And no one's like, maybe the baby wants blood. It's a book about vampires, and there's a vampire doctor, and the vampire doctor at no point thinks like, maybe we'll try, you know, a vampire diet.
Maybe we'll have you drink some blood.
So yeah, Jacob has this like thought sort of jokingly, and Edward reads his mind and is like, oh, that's a good idea. And then Bella drinks blood and she's like, tasty.
Yeah, dude. When that happened in the book, my note was just like, Bella drinking blood? Let's fucking go, dude. Like, let's fucking go. Like, drink that blood up. Finally, we're getting something. Like, drink that shit. Here we go. Here we go. Let's fucking go, dude. All right, right at the end of page 243, right at the end of the chapter. Bella's hand ran across her stomach. Well, she rasped, barely audible. I'm starving, so I'll bet he is too. Trying to make another joke. Let's go for it. My first vampire act. Besides the cheesiness of that, I was just like, all right, let's fucking go, dude. Finally, like Bella having to drink blood. Here we go. Go. It's telling that it happens in Jacob's section. Almost like when Meyer was writing this, like switching the perspective to Jacob, like freed her up to start doing things like this. And I was like, yes, you should have been doing this from the beginning. Like, you know, we should have had.
Yeah, so this is one of those moments where I was like, yeah, let's get gruesome. Like, okay, Jacob's not gonna fuck Bella and make like
Right.
wolf babies, so let's like get some gross shit going.
Drink that blood. And the fact that like she wasn't a vampire yet, it was like, all right, yeah, drinking blood when you're not a vampire. I was like, all right, let's go. This is where we go, right here. And in Jacob's section, I texted Sophie about this when we were reading it. Like, I flew through that section, like, and it's, you know,
Yeah,
like
me
200
too.
pages, and I was just flying through, being like, because all the stuff was happening in that section. All of the tied up, like, loose ends were being tied up in that section of Jacob, with Jacob's perspective. And I was just like, all right, let's go. Bella barely in that section.
Yeah, I stopped like taking notes for a while because I was just blowing through.
Yeah, same, dude. I mean, I didn't take notes till like page 370 something because everything was happening. But it's also like a lot of this gets condensed down into a very short time in the movie. Like, we get very little of like the wolf drama in the movie. Considering we had 4 hours to work with both parts in these movies, you could have put this novel in word for word if you have 4 hours to work with. Like, you know.
Oh yeah, they also finally addressed there being a she-wolf and the fact that all of the werewolves are constantly naked in front of each other.
Right. Well,
Like,
and
yeah, not like we all hadn't caught a look, you know. It's
You
not
know-
like I'm into her or anything, but
you know what else I thought about when I finished this and the movie? Like, one question I thought, like, Emily.
yeah, she doesn't matter.
Yeah, and it's quite disappointing that the Emily and Leah storyline and Sam and the wolves is just such an afterthought, because supposedly it's full of tension. We get a lot of Leah in this last book because when Jacob's in wolf form, he can hear her thoughts and all, right? So like we get a lot of Leah from Jacob's perspective, and I was just thinking to myself, like, man, I was waiting for some type of tension or for Emily to matter at all, because in the first, or what is the second book, Emily seems to be positioned as kind of the mothering figure in the wolf pack because she's Sam's, wife
Yeah.
or fiance. So she would be kind of like the top female in command. But like that never happens. She seems to disappear. Like it doesn't matter at all that she's like scarred up and like all this stuff. It was like, hold on. This could have been great. Like this could have been such a great little side plots where we get her perspective or Leah's perspective or somebody's kind of in that regard, and it's just completely gone, completely missed. Like same thing for that dude, that little girl. Like she put out that novella of like the short second life of Bree Tanner. It's like you could have put that into the novel of Eclipse, and we could have been like little cutbacks to this young vampire who's confused, and then we see her in the field with everybody when it all comes together. And it's just more example of this being amateurish, this being written for children, and again, this is why it bothers me when people try to put books like this into academic frameworks or claim that they're like allegories. Or I'm like, no. This writer had no idea what they were doing. I think it's pretty obvious. Okay, let's grant it that when you're writing something, you have no idea what you don't know necessarily where it's going, right? Like you might have an idea, but it rarely ends up that way. Okay, fine, whatever. That's part of the creative process.
She didn't have any books out before this either, right? Like
No. She had never written books in her life before this. I think she was a producer. I can't be sure about that. I know she produces movies now, but I don't know if she did before Twilight.
Interesting. Yeah, before Twilight? No fucking way.
I don't know, because I don't know if her...
You think?
I don't know. I don't know anything about her, so I don't know anything about her personal life or stuff like that, but... If you listen to this podcast, you know how I feel about trying to use authors' personal lives to give us some type of meaning in their work. I think
only meaning I need is that for some reason she chose the name Jacob, and Jacob is like, is it her brother or her like son? I don't remember.
It's her brother's name.
Yeah, it's fucking weird.
Yeah, it is a little weird. And I didn't really take many notes during that Jacob scene either. Like my next note is like page 370. So like literally like 120 pages went by without me taking any notes on that. And the movie cuts a lot of that out because it is a lot of the wolf dynamic. And we already said, it's hard to show the wolves communicating on screen. You'd have to do like this voiceover stuff. But it's still like, man, like we could have gotten that. Like we could have, I don't know. It seems like a waste. All about this stuff seems like missed opportunities. Missed things. Like I said, I keep going like, who edited this? It has to be the marketing. You got to give credit to the agents, the publishers, all these people that did the marketing, because there's not a lot here, and it's pretty much survives off the marketing still.
Yeah, what's my next big note?
The surgery scene.
Oh, don't even. Hang on. Let me check first before we get there.
I think in the surgery scene we're still, and we get this kind of like, we get the buddy between Edward and Jacob, right? Like they now have like a shared cause.
Oh yeah, we also get this like foreshadowing on 277 where we're like for some reason talking about the chromosomal differences between vampires, humans, and wolves.
Yeah. Right.
And we figured out that for whatever reason, Jacob and the baby have something in common.
They both have 24.
Yeah, I don't know that we are there yet. This is just Alice. Oh, we're not even there yet, but ultimately, yeah. This is where that starts. They like both have like 24 or some shit.
Yeah, they both have 24 and vampires have like 25 or something.
Yeah, it's something weird.
Yeah. And then if you have Down syndrome, you have 22. Like something like that. They like try to explain that to us. It's like, all right. And then that that surgery scene. The chapter of the surgery scene is called "There Are No Words for This." Still in Jacob's perspective. But about the movie in that surgery scene too, dude. I always said like the surgery scene is very soap opera. It's very soap opera. Like, we have to perform surgery in the middle of this field, like kind of thing, you know? Like,
All of a sudden, out of nowhere,
right.
unexpectedly,
You have to like cut
even though
open
we
this.
said it might be happening today.
Yeah. Oh, the placenta detached. The placenta must have detached.
Yeah, let's see.
Detached placenta. And Jacob and Edward have to perform the surgery themselves. So like Jacob's like holding her down while Edward's trying to give birth to this baby. He has to bite the sac, the amniotic sac, to get it out. So his mouth is all bloody because he has to put it down on Bella's cooch and bite. Little cooch nibble to get this.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I think they like slice her open, don't they?
Yeah, they give like C-section or something, I guess, kind of.
Yeah.
It is in the movie scene, dude, when he's putting his, like, my wife was sitting on the couch next to me, like, watching the movies, and, you know, same as she, like, she wasn't paying attention, like, and she looked up when, like, the surgery scene was happening, and Edward shoves that Pulp Fiction, like, needle into her heart. And Jacob's like, what is that? And then he just, like, they have this slam, like, he, like, slow motions, and he turns, he's like, my venom. As my wife started
Bill
bursting out
laughing. That too. Yeah, so did Bill.
Yeah. So if you haven't,
funny.
yeah. And the way they did it, they like made it take just a little bit too long. So it was like they didn't cut the scene right away. They like gave too much of a pause in between that, and like it just made the corniness like stand out. You know, bad directing, but whatever. Or editing.
Oh yeah. Also, at this moment, right before this moment, Edward can now hear the baby's thoughts. So now he's team baby.
He's team baby because he loves her.
Him at the moment.
Yeah, he
They
loves
keep
her.
calling it him, which automatically means that it's going to be a her.
Yeah. He's like, actually, this is why the series sucks, right? Because it's all this drama, the baby's killing her, and then all of a sudden it's just one little thing. And now Edward's okay with it. Now Edward can communicate with the baby. All this kind of shit, and I'm just like, come on, like things need to stop working out perfectly. Like everything needs to stop working out the way.
Oh yeah, it works out so perfectly, and it will continue to do that until the very end. Yeah, so the most exciting moment happens for me on 347. It might be one of my favorite moments in the whole book, the most promising moment, and the one that also maybe let me down, because I was like, it's happening, they're moving on, they're making it gross, it's coming. Her body twitched, arched in Rosalie's arms, and then Bella vomited a fountain of blood. I was like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, let's fucking go, dude. Bella drinking blood.
So pumped about that. This is also like the moment in the movie where like her back like gruesomely breaks while she is standing, and then she like falls onto her knees and everything sounds so crunchy. It's
Yeah,
great.
where she like bends over
It's
backwards.
way less good. Yeah, it's not as good in the movie, but
Yeah. Oh,
and now she's all gruesome and like naked and gross,
surgery, the soap opera
as
surgery.
one is in pregnancy.
And Carlisle isn't there to help with the surgery, so Edward has to do it himself.
Yeah.
And also save Bella's life by turning her into a vampire, by injecting his venom into the heart. Oh, God, yeah. And I think, too, like, this Jacob section, because we're about to be done with the Jacob section and move back to Bella for the last part of this novel. And you can feel the shift. Like, the reason I like the Jacob section the most was the pacing was so much better in the Jacob section, where we have boom, boom, boom. It's like a steady pace of events that keep leading to things and stuff. Okay. Jacob's conflicted by them. He has to have his change and accept the fact that, you know, the woman he loves is having a vampire baby and then will be turned into a vampire to save her life because the baby's going to kill her when it comes out of the womb. And then it just kind of falls apart. Like the entire series falls apart after that. But we're almost to the end of the first movie in this section.
Apparently, so I found this out from the interview. Apparently, Stephenie Meyer wrote the entire pregnancy from Bella's perspective first. And she realized there was all of this lag time where, like, you know, she couldn't do anything. She couldn't leave the house. And all of the action was always happening somewhere else, which is true in every moment of Bella in this whole series.
Yeah.
And that she rewrote it from Jacob's perspective. And that, quote, I had a really great time with that, and it really did move the story along a lot faster with a lot more action. So I think it was the right thing to do.
It was. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you should have done it sooner.
Right. Because, yeah.
So, like, she had an awareness. But it was like, yeah, you should have been aware of that way sooner when nothing was happening, 2 books ago.
Right. When you and I both mentioned on the Eclipse episode, yeah, we were burning out of Twilight because, like, not enough was happening, not enough was carrying this through, and they just killed off the main villains at the end of that book. So there was this kind of like, okay, whatever. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can feel that, you can read it yourself, listeners, and you can kind of be like, yeah, you can feel that it was the right call to put Jacob's perspective, because how else would we know all this stuff? Like, if she's putting Bella's does nothing in that section but lay miserable on a couch or in bed, like unable to move, unable to eat, in
boring
pain.
As shit.
Yeah, boring as fuck, which is what the last section becomes. But we're out of so this is where the first movie ends. This is where Breaking Dawn Part 1 ends, with, like, Bella waking up with her red eyes being turned, which is a fine place to break up the two
right before
parts,
this
but
moment is when something else important happens.
lay it on me.
Jake imprints. All that lead up to Jacob imprinting on a baby.
Although I didn't really quite get the imprinting when I read it. I didn't understand it until Bella's reaction later in the book.
Oh. Everything inside me came undone as I stared at the tiny porcelain face of the half-vampire, half-human baby. All the lines that held me to my life were sliced apart in swift cuts, like clipping the strings to a bunch of balloons. Everything that made me who I was, my love for the dead girl upstairs, my love for my father, my loyalty to my new pack, the love for my other brothers, my hatred for my enemies, blah, 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 and I floated up into space. A new string held me where I was. Yeah, some shit about the symmetry of the universe.
Yeah, this is the whole scene, because it is kind of like it's not entirely clear that this is what imprinting is, because we've never really had a description of imprinting before. So for me, it was just kind of like, I don't know, I didn't pick up on it until after we got into Bella's section, and she realizes that they just straight up say he imprinted on the baby. Not one string, but a million. Not strings, but steel cables. A million steel cables, all tying me to one thing, to the very center of the universe. I could see that now, how the universe swirled around this one point. I'd never seen the symmetry of the universe before, but now it was plain. The gravity of the earth no longer tied me to the place where I stood. It was the baby girl in the blonde vampire's arms that held me there now. Renesmee. Fucking name of the
name,
baby,
dude.
dude. God, it's so stupid.
It's the worst. It's so bad. I don't know, Renee and Esme. I was thinking Renesmee. Yeah.
And, like, I guess that's Mormon, right? Like, like naming after both parents' names, like combining the names.
I don't know, dude. I mean,
and the middle name with Carlisle and Charlie. Carly.
I mean, don't you remember Albus Severus?
Yeah.
That was pretty bad.
It was bad, but at least those were already names, and they weren't combined into like one. It was first and middle.
Severus.
Albus Severus Potter, the Cursed Child. Did you read that one, The Cursed Child?
No.
Oh, God, they need to stop making. They need to stop making new ones of that. It's disgusting, dude. It was absolutely disgusting. It was. And they're making that a movie now, I guess, because it's like a hit play, and it's gonna be terrible. I think they haven't. The only reason they haven't made it, I think, like Daniel Radcliffe and has like kind of refused to.
Good.
Yeah. And I think because that book wasn't written yet, that it's not in his contract, because he still has that contract where he has to show up and do like Orlando Studios shit, like in Universal Studios, like it contractually, since he's the face of Harry Potter. He makes a lot of money off that because like his face is sold on all the merchandise and shit. I think he makes like $15 million a year just off his Harry Potter royalties that he gets. Just because every time they sell like a cup, like a mug in the gift shop with his face on it, like he gets a payout. But like and he's just like, no, I'm not coming back. And that book wasn't written yet, or that play, The Cursed Child, wasn't written yet. So now Radcliffe's just like, nah, like I'm done doing Harry stuff. Like everything that I'm not contractually obligated to show up for.
Yeah, good for him, dude.
Like I'm not gonna do it. So like he had to show up for the reunion. He had to show up for like all this other shit that they did.
I like him better playing stupid evil characters in very bad rom-coms anyway.
Yeah, and he's not a good actor. Like he's not a good actor, but I admire the fact that he is taking the money that he's getting payouts every year from this empire that he was a part of, and just doing like weird indie movies, like not giving a fuck, like doing like theater and like just going for it. Wish he was a better actor, because Pattinson kind of did that too, although I doubt he's making as much money as Radcliffe is off of.
Pattinson's good.
But Pattinson's a good actor, so he's getting a career. Like he's getting a career where he's now no longer considered Edward Cullen. He's now Batman and all this other shit. He's like doing all kinds of weird roles.
I mean, Batman was bad.
He did a couple
I don't blame
of
him
those,
for it.
right? He did a couple Safdie brothers movies where he, they use him well, all that kind of stuff. But anyway, yeah, back to Twilight.
Yeah, so Bella's a vampire now, and she will proceed to spend the rest of the novel explaining what that feels like.
Yeah, and this is the point where I brought this up to you, like the hunting chapter. I guess that's the first chapter in Bella's section. Here, let me. Not quite, because we get the turning. So I think chapter 21.
It's the first chapter where something happens.
Yeah,
maybe.
Chapter 21 is the hunting chapter where she takes her first hunt with Edward. But you can already read this. So like Bella, her section slows down so much, like the pacing
instantly
just screeches to a halt. Like literally somebody slammed the emergency brake, and the story that was churning so fast under Jacob's section just completely stops. Like it just completely halts on the tracks. Like
yes, and now we're just looking at how defined everything is.
Right.
Because she has vampire eyes. Hang on, I gotta grab a drink.
Long ass fucking book, dude. Long ass fucking book.
Yeah, and it gets so fucking slow. So slow that at some point time just has to pass. And they have to explain time. Stephenie Meyer just has to explain that time has passed, but
yeah,
we'll get there.
And I texted you about this, and then you texted me about this, because that really, I mean, this last section, I think you said you got really slowed down with it, like.
Oh, because I was so bored. I didn't
like
care.
You said, yeah, it took you like longer to read those last like 300 pages than it did to read like the first 400. Like,
well, mind you, I had already I had read everything. Right, already. And it was one of those situations where it's like there's only so much to forget. So like all of the big plot points I remembered. The stuff in between those plot points wasn't enough to like be like, oh, I forgot about that. It wasn't like, I don't know, like every time I reread The Chamber of Secrets, I'm like, oh shit, I forgot about that, because so much happens.
right.
Not enough happens in this book So once she has the baby and is a vampire, I'm like, all right, there's only like one thing left
Yeah.
to happen. And it's not going to happen for another like 400 pages.
And Bella's section opens with this quote by Orson Scott Card. Personal affection is a luxury you can have only after all your enemies are eliminated. Until then, everyone you love is a hostage, sapping your courage and corrupting your judgment. Yeah, and then we get the kind of like, okay, she's back to having her dreams of like her little baby, blah, 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 all that shit.
She sees her creepy baby. Her creepy baby is growing creepy fast.
Where am I? Okay, page 371, right? Where we get kind of, it's a rehashing,
Right.
rehashing of what we already saw through Jacob's eyes. So the same exact line from Edward. The placenta must have detached. Something sharper than knives ripped through me. The words making sense in spite of the other tortures. Detached placenta. I knew what that meant. It meant that my baby was dying inside me. Get him out, I screamed to Edward. Why hadn't he done it yet? He can't breathe. Do it now. The morphine. He wanted to wait to give me painkillers while our baby was dying? Nice little interrobang there, right? A question mark, exclamation point. No, now, I choked, unable to finish. Black spots covered the light in the room as a cold point of new pain stabbed icily into my stomach. It felt wrong. I struggled automatically to protect my womb, my baby, my little Edward Jacob. But I was weak. My lungs ached. Oxygen burned away. My little Edward Jacob. Jesus fucking Christ. Bella is insane. That's what I wrote in my notes right there. My little Edward Jacob is what she called her vampire baby. Why is Jacob included in this? Like,
Yeah, is this the first time we hear that? Because I remember her saying that it was either going to be EJ or Renesmee. And I was like, God, at least EJ sounds normal. Like, you know?
yeah. I don't know. I don't remember her saying anything about that because I guess I wasn't paying attention.
She didn't.
I mean, dude, there's so many things I didn't pay attention.
I could be conflating the book and the movie now, and in the movie they're just like, I was thinking either this or this. But I think they do that in the book a little bit earlier.
There are so many things that I don't remember after reading these books, dude, that like it's just, it could have happened and I'm just completely...
And they're like, it's one of a kind. I like it.
Yeah.
Just like our baby.
But like and this is, I brought this up last episode where
I hate stupid names, man. I hate it when you get a really bad character name and there's just like no fucking good reason. And like I get that she wanted it to be all symbolic of like the moms and like, oh, it's both of our moms. And otherwise I was gonna name it after you and my best friend. Like, fuck our dads. They don't matter.
Yeah.
And I don't have any girlfriends because I'm not like other girls, so that's out of the question.
Isn't the middle name Carly out of the dad's names, she says?
Oh, right.
Where they combine Carlisle and Charlie.
Well, at least Carly is normal, too. It's ugly, but it's normal.
It's spelled differently, too, to like make it seem...
Yeah, because it's Charlie without an H.
Yeah, and Carlisle.
Yeah, which is just Charlie without an H.
But this is
Carly.
what I brought up in the Eclipse episode, where we've reached a point where Jacob has not been chosen. It's very clear to Jacob he hasn't been chosen. It's very clear to Edward. It's very clear to Bella. It's very clear to the reader. Yet Bella insists on like keep bringing Jacob into it. Like,
she's a dumb bitch. But then they also like, because she's mean, you know? Not mean, but like, she doesn't mean to be, but like, you know, can't let go. Is the way that I guess you read it as an adult, but also they explain this away by being like, no, the pull the whole time. Well,
you know,
I guess the whole time that she was pregnant was just to the baby, like because of Jacob's imprinting thing. And I was like, okay.
Right.
This whole thing is weird, but...
Not to mention, so, okay, this is a little different for novels.
One day they're going to hang out and he's going to be like, hey, so did I ever tell you about that time that I did a sexual assault on your mom?
But anyway, that's, okay, yeah. So there's that. Bella's keeps insisting to like bring Jacob into things, even though everybody knows that Jacob's no longer part of it. Even Jacob understands his place in it now. He's no longer trying to
think
court
about
her.
her naked all the time.
Right. Well, that's just a natural male, like that. Everybody gets upset when you like. It's just people have to come to terms with this, all right? Like, if you're a man and like even it doesn't even matter if you're straight or anything like that. It just if you're a man with male sexual desires, blah blah, you are picturing people naked around you, just as a random fleeting thought in your head.
Yeah, but I would assume that usually it's like the younger person first, and it's like, oh, her mom's kind of hot. Maybe I'll also picture her naked, not like, hey, so.
It depends how old you are.
With your mom.
Well, not the babies. Yeah, not the babies. Yeah, yeah. Not babies. Yeah. But yeah, just like the normal kind of male. It's just the fleeting. It's not like something that like.
Just yeah, everyone pictures everyone naked.
Right, and it's not like some fixation or like some weird obsessive thing. It's just a little fleeting, yeah, and then it flutters away. Then it flutters away, like kind of never to return kind of thing. Like, that's why I said, like, we talked about Joy Williams. Joy Williams captured this, I thought, better than anybody that I've read in American literature, where she was able to capture this, the kind of little fleeting thoughts that are very normal, but like we consider weird if somebody said them out loud or dwelled on them or something. But yeah, anyway, so we get the same thing. So this is the repeated thing. We get the repeated scene. We have the birth happening in Jacob's perspective, where he's there helping, and then we have the birth from Bella's perspective right after that. Now, it's a little different for novels, but one of the main rules in most writing is maybe more important in things like screenwriting. One of the rules, right? And whatever, you can bend rules, we can break rules, whatever. Sometimes that's fun, right? Usually what's not fun is breaking this one, which is telling the reader or the viewer something they already know. Like when you're doing that and you're repeating information that needs to be given to the reader or viewer and they already know it, like you're not progressing the story, right? Like you're stagnating the story. You're making the pacing throw off, which we already talked about. As soon as Bella's chapter comes back, the pace just screeches to a halt because we already saw this. We literally just saw what's happening. Now we see it from another character's perspective. Sometimes this can work in movies. Sometimes that can work, right? I'm thinking of, what was that Matt Damon movie and Ben Affleck, like the medieval one they just came out with, where like you see that from three different perspectives, the same story. And it kind of starts to affect that movie after a point too. It's not gonna say that movie's good, but it's just, I can't even think of The Last Duel. The Last Duel is what it's called. Sorry. And the ending is good with like the duel and all that, but like it just makes it a little too long. And the fact that we get three different perspectives of the same event is what kind of makes it feel like it drags, because we already know the information kind of. But you do learn a little bit from each perspective, so it makes up for it a little bit. But yeah, it's just, one of the basic rules. And this is another thing, we've said this every episode, amateur writing doesn't pay attention to these things. Not because they're subverting the rules and doing something cool, but because they clearly don't understand that, like, this is a bad move to make if you want your reader to be seriously engaged, page-turner type thing, right? At least that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah. Yeah, we get a really long, boring description of her feeling like her whole body was burning while she's turning into a vampire.
That's what I mean. So there's no reveal. It's revealing what the reader already knew. We already knew she had this, this baby, like the venom in her heart, all of this. Like, we knew this was happening.
And there's still 400 pages left, so we know she's going to survive it too.
Yeah.
There's no threat of her not coming through.
And just the type of story this is.
Unless they do something real cool. I mean, I don't think the fans would have been happy.
Oh, dude. And this is, I don't want to, I hate bringing up something that doesn't have to do with this, but since I just recently watched the ending of the last season of Ozark and stuff, what people liked about Game of Thrones, considering that was one of the last big, huge television dramas that everybody watched, whatever. I don't want to get into the ending and how they fumbled the ball on the 1 yard line type thing. But
For
like
3 seasons is fine.
yeah. But like the reason we like that is because the main characters were killed. The main characters were killed without mercy, very unexpectedly. It kept us being like, "Oh my god, who's gonna die?" Like, and in Ozark, they had so many
took risks.
opportunities. Yeah, exactly. It's a risky thing to do, but this. And the reason I brought up Ozark because there was just a scene in there where like the crazy cousin of the cartel or the crazy nephew of the cartel leader is taking over and is fucking shit up, right? Like causing problems in the plans. And at one point he has a gun pointed at Jason Bateman's head. And I was like, oh my God, if you had any balls right now, you would kill him. You would just have this guy shoot Jason Bateman in the head. And it'd be, holy shit, the main character just got killed. We have 7 hours left still, kind of thing.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
they
when do you want
didn't.
to talk about the movies?
Yeah, but they didn't. They had him saved by a cell phone call. By a cell phone call, dude. The cartel guy who's kind of out of his mind, being crazy, not listening to the actual cartel leader, is suddenly convinced by a fucking phone call in the heat of him pointing a gun at this guy. Oh, okay, I won't kill. I'm just like, I already knew. I mean, okay, that show is never great, but like when I was listening, I was like, oh, this ending's going to be awful. Like, you needed to kill. We need to do. These people have been fucking with the cartel for like 4 seasons now. They need to start dying. Like, they need to start being killed. They need to be on the run. Something but oh, it's all great. But, and it's the same thing with this book. Like the sentiment, we knew she wasn't going to die because nobody dies in this book. Nobody dies who matters. Okay, there are no consequences. There are no mistakes.
Yeah,
Everything
now
always
everything
works
that's
out as
exciting
planned.
has been
Yeah.
eliminated. Because the
Right.
only thing that was exciting was, oh, is Edward gonna be a dick and leave? Like, that's really all it is. Oh, is she gonna make out with Jacob?
Yeah, and so there's no subverting our expectations. There's no giving us a shock of killing a beloved character. Like there's no there's not even a disruption in plans. And we're going to get to this as we discuss this last fucking section, but like boy oh boy, did that. And then Bella's a vampire, just like that. Just snap, okay, she's a vampire. And the movie does a little bit of like will she, won't she, will she survive? I think the movie does a better job of creating like she basically dies on the table after giving birth, and the only
There's
thing that
more
keeps
suspense.
her right, they drag it out a little bit. And again, this is because we've mentioned before Melissa Rosenberg, who, professional screenwriter, who again is probably retired after writing these 5 movies because they made so much fucking money. She knew what she was doing, so she'd like, all right, drag this moment out, give it a little bit more tension because there's nothing here already. But anyway, Bella's kind of vampire change. It just, boom, just like that, right? It just happens. So, okay, just like that, whatever. This book has been like that this entire time. I'm willing to go with it, sure. Whatever. She's a vampire.
Spends a lot of time making out with her husband in front of her family.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we get to chapter 20. It's called New. Where it's like, all right, Bella's now a vampire. She's kind of describing her sharpened senses, the heightened, she's no longer clumsy. That's gone because she's a vampire. She's elegant. She's graceful. She glides, right? She can jump.
She has power now.
Yeah, she can jump
She's
out of
an
2-story
agent.
windows. The thing that they show is that she can jump out of 2-story windows in high heels and land on like an uneven rock. And like that's like, whatever, grace of the vampire. I was like, okay, whatever, that works.
Yeah, whatever.
But then we have that hunt, right? That first hunt with Edward taking her to hunt deer because they're vegetarians, vampire vegetarians. Oh my God. Oh yeah, dude.
Vegetarians.
All right. And this is where I noticed it. I was going to say page 24, 25-ish. Because we get a couple chapters. She explains all this, and then it was 425. And we get this kind of like... they're on their first hunt. So Edward is taking Bella to hunt. He's teaching her the ropes kind of thing. And she says at the top of page 425, second paragraph, "It was a surprisingly sensual experience to observe Edward hunting." I was like, yeah? It was very sensual to watch your man kill this thing with his teeth. His
Yeah.
smooth spring was like the sinuous strike of a snake. His hands were so sure, so strong, so completely inescapable. His full lips were perfect as they parted gracefully over his gleaming teeth. He was glorious. I felt a sudden jolt of both pride and desire. He was mine. Nothing could ever separate him from me now. I was too strong to be torn from his side. Anyway, she's
Yum.
getting turned on watching him kill animals
Yeah.
and drink their blood. Vampire horniness.
Yeah, see, it's like it's not exciting now that we know it's like it's a little fun, you know, when we get the hot and heavy descriptions. And
Right.
she's like, his big, big hands. His big vascular hands.
And just like everything else, it's kind of not enough. Like, I get the
It's
kind
not.
of yeah. And there's some we want to talk about themes.
Because
Of it.
they
There is
have
some
no depth. They're just like these weird martyr characters for each other. And like they don't have any personality beyond that. They're both different.
That's a good way to put it.
Like that's all it is. Before it was like a weird, confusing, like, what are you? Like, what's
Right.
this passionate thing we have? It's all really fucked up. I'm 100, you're 17. What about that? You know?
Yeah.
And now all of that is gone. So it's just not enough. Because that was the only tension that ever existed in this book.
Yeah.
Well, in this
And
series.
I guess that was chapter 21. Chapter
Yeah.
21 is the one I'm referring to, and that was the chapter. And I texted Sophie about this. Chapter 21 seems like the ending to me. Like that is the end of the story. Like they're hunting together. She's turned. Jacob is fine with it. The baby is born safe and healthy. She survives. She's now a vampire. Everything she wanted. She and Edward are vampires together forever, and the baby doesn't even kill humans. The baby isn't even like a reckless, oh my god, it might kill its mother and other humans and its grandfather, blah, blah, blah. Like, that never happens. That's all fine. Like, the story's over, right? Like, this is why the last section, I think, was so difficult for us to read. Like, the story's over here. Like,
Yeah.
this is the ending, and we'll get to this, listeners, but then we have another 300 pages to end up where we are right now in chapter 21. Jacob being fine and okay with it, the baby being born and healthy, who doesn't kill anybody, is so fucking rational for a little kid that it's fine. And then Bella doesn't actually kill humans either. She can control herself better than any vampire that's ever existed. Whatever, happily ever after. That's the end. It's right there. But because we have such an amateur writing kind of thing going on with this, like we extend this out for 350 more pages and to end up in the exact same place. Nothing happens that changes the trajectory. Nothing gets in the way of their plans. And then everything just ends up where it already is in chapter 21. Page 420.
There's a whole plot line that doesn't... I mean, and we've said this of so many plot lines in this series, but there's a whole plot line that just really doesn't matter, that they try to wrap up with the Volturi.
Shit, dude, at least the
Because
Volturi...
I guess they have to be like, the ultimate bad guys, even though they're not. Like, they are and they aren't. Like...
Yeah. They're bad guys,
like-
but then also they're incredibly reasonable. If you just convince them, have a
yeah.
negotiation.
Basically, I mean, yeah, how much time do we really need to spend on these last 300 pages?
Well,
Let
the
me see
thing
what's
is,
in my notes.
yeah, the thing is, that's why I just all right, this is it. This is the end. And then Jacob's kind of out of the picture because he imprinted on the baby, right? Bella's done with him or whatever.
So she's all pissed about it, right? But then they're like, we have to leave because we're vampires and Bella's dad lives here and they can't know. And so Jacob does a thing and he goes and tells Charlie that he's a werewolf.
Dude, that...
And this is handled very poorly.
Dude, it didn't even need to be done. Like, and it only furthers the happy ending thing. Like if the story is that the baby that they're telling Charlie is that it's a niece that they're adopting because of a tragedy, like, you didn't have to go further. Like,
Yeah, at this point, just tell Charlie everything.
well, the reason, I guess they try to explain that they don't want to tell him everything because then the Volturi would be after him. Volturi.
Right.
This fucking made up name that I always mispronounce.
Yeah, whatever.
I add an extra syllable in there. It's like, anyway, they would be after
The
him because humans
Illuminati.
can't know the
They're just the
secret. Blah blah
Illuminati.
blah. Yeah.
We can
So
call
they
them
try to
the
make it like
Illuminati,
that.
the church, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, and it's not enough. Just like everything with Charlie, right? Like, Charlie starts acting very strange, like in the third book here, when he starts like being on Jacob's side because he hates Edward, but
he's also like, well, I'm just glad to have you here, Bella, and I don't need to, know all the details. It's fine. I don't want to know why I have a niece that is suddenly just went from being like a newborn to being like a 7-year-old.
in 2 months, yeah. Yeah.
And,
With the maturity
I
of a
don't need to
7-year-old,
know
yeah.
why you're all different and shit. And also, for some reason, Bella gets contacts just to see Charlie.
Right. Contacts become part of the story all of a sudden, and like they just have all these colored contacts to give her, and they dissolve in her. It's a complication that doesn't need to be there, but I understand. Okay, her eyes are red, so we need to cover that up because that's unusual. But like at the
Yeah,
same
and at no
time,
point do they talk about makeup. It's like, you could just make her not that pale.
right? Yeah.
You could just keep up this charade for a little while and like
And she was kind of already supposed to be like pale, like a pale
Pale
girl.
as shit,
like,
yeah.
like
she was an emo kid
right
from
so-
Arizona.
God, that does sum it up, doesn't it? Emo kid from Arizona. Oof. All right, yeah. And that's I didn't figure out that Jacob imprinted until Bella's section when she gets mad about it. That's I was like, oh shit, Jacob imprinted on the baby, because that first section where they like we just read with like the universe and all the strings and all these fucking things, that didn't do it. Like I didn't get that connection because that was never talked about with
Yeah.
Quill or Embry imprinting or any of the other wolves.
Well,
We
I
never
only got
talked
it 'cause
about
they-
that.
I don't remember what I was saying, but yeah.
Jacob imprinting and them describing the imprinting in that section.
Yeah. I only understood it because I think they like had a number of characters try to explain it to him, and they also worked it up to this whole big storyline for him. Like, he goes on that one car ride, right, where he's like, he goes to the park because he's listening to Edward talk to the baby through it, like while it's still in Bella's belly, I guess.
Yeah.
Jake's like all pissed off because now even Edward isn't his ally and blah blah blah.
Right.
He like goes for a cruise to like, I don't know, pick up chicks or like find danger or something,
When Edward
and tries
gives him,
really hard to like imprint on people. And then I think like the next thing that happens after that is Bella gives birth and he imprints.
right, on their baby.
Renesmee. Yeah, Ed and Bella have vampire sex and it's great.
Vampire
sex
sex.
ever.
Did I take any?
I'm
at
sure
one-
I did.
At one point, I was like, I wrote in my notes, "How the fuck do you say the baby's name?" Like,
Vampire sex on 482.
how the fuck do you say this baby's name? 482 with vampire sex. Jesus. Oh my god. Okay. God damn it. And dude, and then yeah. This Irina shit. All right, what did you say on 482?
Oh my god. Yeah. 482.
Which part?
Yeah, so real quick, with the Volturi coming, like the whole idea, we have this fucking storyline of the immortal children. One of their vampire friends comes to visit, but sees Bella and her kid hunting, or Jake and Renesmee hunting, or whatever. I fucking hate it. Every time the name comes out of my mouth, like, I want to die.
Yeah, it's a terrible name.
Thinks that it's just like a full vampire child, and there's this whole history of vampire children being a huge danger to the community, blah blah blah. So that's how, like, she goes to, like, tell on them for making an immortal child without confronting the Cullens to be like, hey, what's up with it? And that starts the whole Volturi storyline. Alice foresees it happening, and like, then time passes.
And about the Irina thing, dude, like it just pissed me off that this character that didn't matter, like, ever, and really wasn't brought into the story ever, all of a sudden is the pivotal thing that, like, makes us be worried about the Volturi. Like, this is it just I know I've said this ever, it's just so weak, man. It's just such a weak story device that I just can't help but roll my eyes. And in the movie for this, when we get to part 2, it's like she's irrelevant. She doesn't even, they could have written her out of the script and it wouldn't have mattered. Because especially, like, that, did you watch that little Easter egg clip at the end of the credits at part 1?
I did not continue to watch the little Easter egg thing you said at the end of the second movie?
Yeah, I think your mic switched too.
Motherfuck.
But there was like that little, it's like an Easter egg thing. It's just like a stupid scene where it's not in the book, but it's like they show Arrow and the Volturi sitting in their chambers, and they get like a little note, like a little letter from Carlisle informing them that Bella is a vampire. Like, they've made the change that they said they would. But it makes...
Wait, this happens at the end of Breaking Dawn?
At the end of Breaking Dawn Part 1, after the credits roll.
Part 1. Oh, I did not watch that at all.
Yeah. It's like a little clip at the end after the credits roll, and it's like, they give like this little note to Arrow, and he's like... like, oh, well, we should make a visit to our friend Carlisle and welcome the new vampire. So it gives like a motivation for the Volturi to come to Carlisle and all them, the Cullen Coven, without Irina in there. And I was thinking they would cut out Irina entirely because, again, she's so irrelevant to this thing. And it doesn't really matter how the Volturi found out, right? It doesn't really matter how they find out, just the fact that they know. If they know so much else, like, why couldn't they know this type thing? Especially with
because
like people...
Irina is the only death that occurs.
Yeah,
you get one death.
But when Irina came in, I was like, wait a minute, who the fuck is this? Like, I'd completely
all these
forgotten.
Motherfucking characters, because we get like this influx of vampire characters for the last 300 pages or whatever.
Yeah,
didn't care about any of them. They could all die and it would be fine.
Right.
Like, half of them have special powers.
Yeah.
Bella has special powers. Her kid has special powers. And then the Volturi come and they have a chat. After Bella does all of this bullshit to, like, prepare for Renesmee to have to run with Jacob.
Right.
Believing that she's gonna die and that they're all gonna die.
Honestly, that was, again, just another misused plot point where, like, that was the best part of that last Bella section in book 3 here, where, like, she has... Alice left her these kind of, like, scavenger hunt clues to find this guy, and she finds this guy. Turns out he's a lawyer that can give her fake papers, blah, 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 fake passports, IDs, all that. And, like... I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. But then, just like everything else, it doesn't matter at all. Like, it is completely inconsequential to the plot.
It was all just like a misdirect because Alice had to make them believe that they were really in trouble and that it was going to turn out this way, so that, I don't know. It was all very convoluted. So that, like, Arrow couldn't read Edward's mind, and that... Bella's the only one who could know because Edward can't read her mind. And, like, it was just ugh. So lame.
Yeah, and it wasn't so much that was lame. Like I kind of suspected that when they said Alice disappeared. Like that's immediately what I suspected. It was that Alice was trying to save them because they could read her mind, or Arrow could, right? Could like read her mind
Right.
for her visions, and like it just yeah. I was like, okay, so we're setting this up for Alice to come back at some point and be like, here's the plan you couldn't know. I was like, okay, that's reasonable. That's fine. Like, that's like, all right, that's a fine plot device. But then the fact that none of it mattered, the fact that it would have been
None of it
exactly
matters.
the same if Alice stayed and they didn't go to this lawyer to get like fake papers. If none of that happened, it would have ended the exact same, is my problem.
The Volturi don't matter, dude.
Well, yeah, that's the
Nothing
thing.
that
Yeah.
happens in the second half of this whole novel matters.
Dude, I just stopped taking notes after this point. Like after chapter 21 where I was like, wait, this is the ending, and it feels like the ending when you're reading it. It feels like it's ending. Like this is the resolution to all the turmoil, and then it keeps going, and then it keeps going, and then we just have conversation after conversation with the Volturi, and they just talk, and it's fine, and it ends up the exact same place it was in
Yeah.
like, chapter 21.
So, and like Bella is preparing to like send Jake and Renesmee off on their way, and then Ed goes, "Goodbye, Jacob, my brother, my son." I was like, "What?
Yeah.
Your son? Your son? Why?"
Whose son?
He calls Jacob his son.
Edward does?
Yeah, he says on 7:23, "Goodbye, Jacob, my brother, my son."
It's because he's supposed to marry the child bride.
But it's not like that, man. Just want to keep her safe.
Yeah. I guess there's that reference to where he's like, should I call you dad now?
Yeah, I know.
So maybe
I watched
that's...
the second movie without Bill, and I made him watch just the ending with me, in part just for that. Just to watch his reaction. He's like, "What did you just say?"
Yeah, and we should move to the movie in a minute here with like the ending differences. But the thing that I hated about the ending here was that the ending was so lackluster. And it's a happy ending. Sure, we knew this was going to be a happy ending because it's literally nothing bad happens in this book. But I can't help but feel like the lack of conflict was a complete waste.
Entire lack of conflict.
Yeah.
Like, they literally just talk.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
There's
There
like
is...
all of this preparation for battle, and they just have a chat for a very long time and like rehash the same issues more than once.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And then they kill Irina, and
Right.
and Irina dies, and we don't care. So,
yeah, we don't
like,
care that Irina died because we didn't know about her except for like a paragraph in a
Yeah,
passing.
she doesn't matter. And
Yeah.
she's also become kind of a bad guy who has to sacrifice herself now because this whole thing is her fault. And so, like, we don't care. We're like, all right, see ya.
And my bigger problem is that everything works out perfectly, that we took another 350 pages from the original ending, or where I would call the ending in chapter 21, for everything to work out perfectly, for no one to die, for everything to just be fine. Like, how did this get published? Like how? Like, I
Yeah,
keep
and then
going...
there's like that dumb twist, right? Alice shows back up. For some reason, the Volturi wives are there, and like we forget that they're there because they don't matter. We never meet them. It's not important. Like, we just know that they're there. But yeah, there's no fight. Alice shows back up to save the day because she's found another half mortal, half vampire.
living in the Amazon or something.
But he's a man, so he's venomous.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the whole thing is like, Renesmee's not venomous, so it's cool.
Right.
It's chill.
And my questions about this, like, kind of, I mean, the lawyer thing was such a waste. Nothing matters in this world. A world without consequences. This is the fucking story universe that Stephenie Meyer created. Should someone have died at the end of the book? Yes, exactly. It should have. Like, I know I keep
I
comparing
mean,
it.
at least the bad guys. And, like,
Right.
maybe one good guy.
Right.
I don't know. Like, someone who mattered. But at the very least, like, yeah, we should have gotten the fight.
And, like, dude,
Um,
I know I keep comparing this to, like,
that's like 300 pages for nothing.
right, we
For
end up
no
exactly where we were.
gratifying.
Yeah.
And like gratification is everything in a romance novel.
Right. And like I've been comparing it to Potter and all that, like the Harry Potter universe, because these, they're just so connected to that time period, blah blah. But like, and it's also the example of like a superior, like, dude, okay, like Dumbledore dies.
Well, and Harry
Like,
Potter was the thing that was the huge thing right before this.
right, and I just mean like Dumbledore was such a beloved character, and she killed him before the last book, like literally killed him off, and like
She killed so many
right,
characters.
and then
She went hard.
And then in the last book, first chapter, dude, people are just dying. Like first
Yeah.
chapter, like beloved
Dude,
characters.
starting book 4, shit gets really dark.
Yeah, and it's just
Because like it ages appropriately.
it
you know?
ages, and it starts to emphasize the importance, right? These people are trying to save the world from evil, therefore they're sacrificing people in order to do that, right? Like, you're willing to give your life to stop this, so we lose,
Well, it gives you a sense that there is actually a threat.
right, so we lose beloved
Right? If
characters.
no one who matters ever dies, then
Right.
there's no real threat.
Exactly, right? So, and as a writer, it's kind of fun to do that, dude. Like, if you write yourself into a corner, well, part of the challenge is to get out of it in a believable, kind of well done way. So just killing a main character is a little bit fun, because now you have to kind
should
of,
have died?
fuck, right? Like, oh shit, like, how do
Who
I
do you
work
think
out of
should
this
have
all? I think Jacob could have died. He would have been an ideal one, especially since he has the most sympathy, like we said, throughout all these books. If Jacob were to sacrifice himself for Renesmee, maybe would have been a good way for him to go, or for Bella. You could have killed off any of the Cullen family. Could have been
Any of the Cullen family
Yeah.
could have gone. I agree.
if we wanted to go really, maybe Charlie. Charlie could be killed off, and that could have caused something, like if they let Charlie know, and then the Volturi were after him, and he ends up being dead, and it's Bella's fault. Automatically heighten the tension, the
Dude,
drama.
that would have been great.
Yeah,
That
dude.
would have been great if
Again.
he died and it was Bella's fault somehow, and
Right.
it actually like was her fucking fault.
Well, it would have been
If something was
yeah.
actually Bella's fault.
Right. Yeah. So that's what I mean, dude. I can't get published, and Stephenie
If she
Meyer
made
can-
something
yeah.
happen and it ended up being a bad thing, it would have been great.
Yeah. But it's all without consequence. It's all without consequence. So, yeah, we're just
But yeah, all is well in the end.
yeah, pissing me off, dude. Pissing me off. All right, the movies we talked about a little bit,
Movies.
dude. The woman they cast to play Alice just was one of the first things I know, because she has a much more important role in this last book. And the actor they cast to play Alice is just so bad. She's just such a bad actor that it just...
Dude, I kept feeling that way about Esme though. But maybe it's just because her face is really
Esme
weird.
too, but she's less important to the story in every aspect. So
Yeah.
it could have been anybody, But like, since Alice became so important in these last couple of movies, and like, just same thing with Taylor Lautner or whatever. Like, you cast somebody for the
Oh my
original,
God,
and then
it's
you're
so
stuck with them,
bad.
and they're not the best actor, and they're kind
He's
of
so bad.
So I had an issue with that, but
I'm gonna say this for all of the Twilight episodes. Taylor Lautner ruined everything. But also I feel bad for him.
yeah.
But not really, because I think like this movie made him like one of the like he was like a sex symbol for a minute.
Right. He wasn't very shirtless for the rest of the series either.
No. And he was also wearing like not the right gear, you know? Like when he gets in front of Charlie to he gets undressed in front of Charlie to change into a wolf
Right.
for Charlie. He straight up has a button up a button flap for his pants, like 5 fucking buttons that he has to unbutton to
Right.
take his pants off. I'm like, whoa, hold up. Like, I don't usually care that much about, these small differences between book and movie, but these full-length pants with his many layers and come on.
Yeah.
He just stops to undress every time he's about to change into a wolf. I mean, I guess he kind of does in the book.
And I noticed this in the third.
But you just kind of assume it's just the cut-off sweatpants thing, and that's all he's got on.
Yeah, and in the book, most of the wolves.
I just assume there's no underwear happening.
Well, they do it differently because
Which is probably not okay because I guess he's 17 in this.
Yeah, and this is one of those stupid kind of comic book nerd things where it's okay, well, in the book they say
It doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah, in the book they describe when the wolves morph, they rip their clothes because Incredible Hulk style.
Well, and it's something that they didn't have to they could have just let him be Book Jacob, in all these ways, and it would have been fine.
Yeah.
And he would have been maybe a better counter to Edward, who's always wearing khakis or some shit.
Well, and this gets into having 4 different directors come through, because if you notice in the first couple, they kind of stay true to that, especially in New Moon. When he morphs, his clothes rip off of him.
Yeah.
In the last couple, they kind of change it so that the wolves' clothes don't, they just kind of morph and their clothes are still there, kind of thing, on them.
Yeah, just magically.
Yeah, so they do.
Well, I mean, that happened in the second one too. Those wolf boys have that fight, and then they reappear at Emily's house, and they're back in their jean short. It's they just have an endless supply of jean shorts.
And Meyer makes a point that they have to carry their pants tied up on the back of their leg or something as wolf form in the book.
Jacob chooses to do that because he says it's easier.
Yeah,
right?
and we're already in a magic world, right? We're in a magic world where these humans can turn into wolves. We don't need to explain the clothes. It just doesn't need to happen. So I see
I'm
why.
fine with explaining the clothes. I'm fine with it. I think that we can explain the clothes.
Yeah, and that's
What's
fine.
annoying is when Bella starts explaining her clothes, and I'm this doesn't need to happen. Bella cares about clothes all of a sudden now that she's a vampire.
And there were a few
And
nice.
it's just Stephenie Meyer playing fantasy dress up.
Yeah, and there were a few nice.
A scallop satin dress with a V-neck and a little bow. I don't fucking know.
I will say.
It was just fun.
In the second movie, when she's supposed to be a vampire and got very both supposed to be gorgeous, they do let Stuart shine a little bit because they try to stop making her look ugly.
Yeah. Oh god, they made her look so ugly in the first one.
When she's pregnant.
Yeah. At least they let her be gross when she was pregnant.
Yeah. Little nice touches that I noticed when I was watching this, and this just goes to Melissa Rosenberg's skill as a screenwriter. Where she the little touch where Charlie's at the wedding and he sees the graduation caps, all the graduation caps on the artwork. And it's just
which is a weird thing to have by the
yeah, but it makes sense in terms of how many times these kids had to graduate high school essentially. And then it shows Charlie being a little suspicious without giving away too much and having him be more than he is in the book, but it adds a little bit of depth to Charlie where he's just those graduation caps? Why are there so many? Kind of thing. And then his, ex-wife or whatever, her mother is oh, that's so creative. It's neat, isn't it? They just kind of dismiss it, but then it's just enough. So it's a couple seconds that was written into the script that isn't in the book. And it just shows us just a little bit of Charlie being a little suspicious about what's going on here. And I was oh, that's a great little pro writer move right there. Great. Same with the flashing of back to Lorraine, right? Or Laurent. I guess it's supposed to be French.
Yeah.
As a reminder, because that was needed. Because I completely forgot that Irina liked Lorraine. or whatever for like a couple months while he
Laurent.
lived. Yeah, whenever he
I've been calling him Laurent.
whenever he lived there. It's just we needed to be reminded that this mattered at all because Irina doesn't fucking matter, and we've already forgotten her motivation for even telling on the Cullens, like because she didn't matter at all. She didn't matter fucking at all. It's a piece of dialogue that Laurent says before they fucking kill him in the new
It's
moon.
just like, yeah. I
And
mean,
it
it's just a
just-
reason for Irina to die.
Yeah, and it just yeah. And then we talked about the wedding speeches. Oof, Anna Kendrick playing Jessica.
Yeah,
Did we talk about this at all?
probably.
What do we think? Like,
I mean, Jessica's such an annoying character anyway, who has no role at all in the last book. But I just didn't care. I mean, she plays annoying fine. She did the job. She's not
Yeah.
how I pictured her, but it's fine.
it's funny when I was watching that first. Like my wife, I watched them back to back, so my wife was kind of watching the first one with me, and then by the time I put the second one on, she kind of just like left the room, like wandered, like But
Yeah,
like
go to bed.
at one point, it was right in the beginning because I guess the speeches are in like the first 20 minutes, and like Anna Kendrick was doing her little speech as Jessica, and my wife turned to me and she's just like, I don't know what it is about that actress, but something just makes me hate her. Like I don't know if she's just really good
I
at
feel
playing that annoying girl or if she actually is just that annoying.
Yeah, she's also got those pointy features.
Yeah.
For some reason.
Yeah.
Do it for me.
Honestly, I didn't even recognize that was Anna Kendrick at first.
Oh, I did.
I didn't. I guess because she was so much younger than like.
A lot of weird moments in this movie being like, oh, Rami Malek's here.
Yeah, dude, Rami Malek playing like that gay
Oh,
vampire.
the ice truck killer from Dexter's here.
Yeah.
I don't even know his name because he doesn't matter, and that makes more sense.
The guy that plays Garrett.
I don't even. Yeah, whoever the fuck that guy is.
Because he was the guy in
The Patriot guy. The
no,
guy who
no,
makes the Beatles joke.
I can't remember which one's
Who's
which.
like the Revolutionary War guy
Oh right. Yeah.
with the longish hair. He's like, I don't give a fuck. And he falls in love with that other vampire. He's like, I'll follow you anywhere, woman.
Yeah.
Is that who we're talking about?
I can't remember because there are two guys.
I can't remember. There are too fucking many of them, and I don't
There
care.
are two like male loner vampires.
There are like 18 vampires
Yeah.
we're supposed to remember. I don't care.
Yeah. Dude, Jacob has a little goatee when he crashes the wedding in that first one, part one. Because he's supposed to be like in the woods for months or whatever, so he has a little scruff.
He's like unshaven,
Yeah.
except he can't grow a beard, so it doesn't matter.
Which, hey, I feel, I can't grow a beard myself. Like, but the fact that they
sucks for
tried
you.
to have him, like, kind of.
Yeah, they should. I mean, yeah, why bother? He also like his hair is normal. Like,
And just the whole
there's a
Bella.
lot of.
Maybe it's because Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson were fucking during the filming of these movies that like they have a bunch of chemistry.
Maybe because there's like a lot of bad casting, and also neither of them is a very good actor at this stage in their career.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just the script, maybe it's like the source material.
But
Maybe it's that Kristen Stewart is always like staring with her mouth slightly open.
Yeah. And it just always is unearned. And I think it does have a lot to do
Always just staring.
with, like you said, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that Lautner is a bad actor. So it's always very awkward when Bella and Jacob are together. And the
Just like miscast.
miscast, but it's also like there's parts missing. And okay, in fiction we can always leave parts out and stuff. But there's parts missing. So
There's too much of his character missing because
Yeah.
he was the only one that was a real character.
and the only one that was like openly hostile to the idea of her getting married, the idea of her being with Edward, all of that, like and then at the wedding scene there, he's just, and it was bad in the book, but like it's just so awkward when they did it on screen that, and I think it does have to do with Lautner being kind of a terrible actor, not very charismatic, all that kind of stuff. It's just so awkward and unearned that I don't believe any of it. Same thing with like, I mentioned this when we talked about
Well,
it.
because there's no chemistry between him and Kristen Stewart, and also like she just feels older than him. And I don't know if that's like because girls tend to at that age.
Well, she's supposed to be older
But-
than him in the series.
Yeah.
By only like 2 years or something, though.
Yeah, but at that point, it's also like enough to make a difference.
Yeah, and it's just never earned at all. Like, it just feels awkward and sloppy, and again, poorly written. And I feel, because like, I don't want to put that on, like, you know, Melissa Rosenberg's shoulders too, because I mean, if you know anything about movie making, I mean, sure, the screenwriter will write the script for their fee, they'll get their little percentage.
There wasn't a lot happening in the book, like
That, so she didn't have a lot to work with. But then also, you know, once you hand in
but
that
also they
script,
decided to make it. They decided to make it into 2 movies. Like, I get that it's a long book, but do
Right.
we need 2 movies?
well, that's just a
Probably
money
not.
grab, yeah. But, you know, and then once you hand in that script, right, you don't have a lot to say after that. You hand in the script, and if they need a rewrite, they'll contact you. But, like, usually then it's, like, in the director's hands, and they can cut whatever they want. The studio can cut whatever they want. They can change whatever they want type thing, because they bought it.
It also
right?
doesn't
Like,
matter, because these movies never needed to be good. They needed to be good enough for fans.
Yeah, and I mean, they clearly did that because they all made a fuckload of money. That's why they
Yeah.
cut it into 2 parts. Like, well, why not make 5 movies?
Can we talk about the CGI baby?
Oh, yeah, dude, I put that in my notes.
Dude, that creepy fucking baby.
And the
Like,
movie...
the first time we see it, it's creepy as shit, and you can tell that it was made on a computer, and you were just like, oh my god, why did they do this? Like, they could have just slapped any baby in there, and it would have been fine. Like, they didn't have to make it some special CGI baby. I don't even understand, like, why they chose to do that
and
instead of, like,
putting a real baby.
just putting a little bit of makeup on a baby.
Yeah. And, oh god, dude, that's CGI, baby. Yeah, dude. In the first part that they cut out the "Please Bang My Wife" part. They cut that out of the movie.
I know.
Yeah.
I was explaining it to Bill.
Yeah.
I was trying to Bill. I was like, so this is the part where Edward's supposed to be asking Jacob to beg Bella to fuck him instead,
And
so that
have his babies.
have
Yeah.
wolf babies.
Have his
This
fucking
whole
babies, dude.
thing.
Dude, and that's what I noticed too, because like when the wolves are talking on the beach, when like Jacob runs away from the pack, I was like, man, the wolves talking are, it's like Chronicles of, my wife was like, Chronicles of Narnia.
It's so
Jesus. Yeah.
funny. It's so funny.
Yeah.
And yeah, there was a lot about this movie. Like, the second movie was really funny for me. Also,
dude, there were
like
so
when
many
Bella is
parts.
climbing up the cliff.
Dude, when she's
Bella's like climbing up a cliff face, just like
when she's
like a
punching
fucking spider.
when she's punching that rock and it's like disintegrating, and she's like doing like karate on this, and she's just kind of, and Kristen Stewart plays it so bad, like there's like, she's like smiling, and like the CGI is bad too. And you know, this was a big budget movie, but it was also like CGI just, it wasn't quite what it is today, like what we're used to seeing CGI look like
It was
today.
bad.
Yeah, we
Bill
weren't.
was like, huh,
Yeah,
girls don't care about special effects, do they?
this was right before
Oh,
we
I mean,
started.
dude, this was after Lord of the Rings. Like, no excuses.
Yes, but Lord of the Rings also, this was before we started filming movies on complete green screens like they do with the Marvel movies now, right? Where everything's a green screen. It's like a huge amphitheater that's covered in green screens, and they get to like, this is how they filmed Game of Thrones and stuff when they needed this. Like, we just weren't, it was like a couple years away from that becoming the norm to make fantasy features where you need a lot of CGI. So like the CGI looks bad against the traditional film because it's just not quite there yet. Like, we were still like, at that point, animatronics still looked better than CGI. Even if you watch Lord of the Rings, like the old Lord of the Rings, dude, the CGI stuff, like, it doesn't look good. But if you watch the new Hobbit stuff, like, the CGI looks fucking great because it was made a couple years ago. Like, the computer tech just wasn't there yet. Like, the filming tech, like the digital film, like, it just wasn't there yet.
There was a lot.
But it was
yeah,
very
there's
bad.
this-
It was Chronicles
It was
of
very
Narnia
bad.
Like, the way they have the wolves
Yeah.
talk, all of that.
Oh, you know what I loved? I loved that in the first movie, Robert Pattinson really had like the vibe and cadence of like a younger, less likable Christopher Walken.
I didn't pick up on that.
Oh man. I mean, just, well, it's just because both him and Kristen Stewart were doing like this weird, slow speaking thing, especially Kristen Stewart.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
they both had like their only sort of move was squinting their eyes, opening their mouths a little bit, and like talking slowly.
Yeah. And yeah, I didn't pick up on that, but when you texted me that, I was like, yeah, I could see that. Christopher Walken.
It's just the cadence.
Yeah. No, not here.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
You're going to have the baby.
Yeah. Oh, dude, yeah. I always just think of Christopher whenever
At some
somebody,
point, they start yelling about the fetus.
yeah, whenever somebody brings up Christopher Walken, I always think of Joe Dirt. I like just always think of Christopher Walken and Joe Dirt playing Clem, the janitor. Like,
Bump or poop.
yeah, and just like his, like, just he has the best scenes in that movie with him. Like, it's just all fucking hilarious when he's like in the witness protection program or whatever. He's like, that's my wife. Is this your wife or something? Ex-wife. She was shot 6 times. New York City. I mean Kansas. He's just like, he's like lying about where he's from. He's like, Clem, are you from around here? Because your accent sounded like New York or something. He's like, no, from here. Born and raised. No, not here. Kansas. And it's just like Christopher Walken, the cadence just makes it so much funnier. But yeah, man. The movies, all of the movies in general, now that we're at the end of this, like we've watched all of them, they all have more werewolf versus vampire than any of the books. Like they show
Yeah, that's
battles,
true.
they show the tension,
Yeah,
they show
there's
the
more vampire versus werewolf fighting that happens,
Right.
which is, fun, but like it doesn't actually feel like it adds anything.
dude. And then Bella tackling that mountain lion in the beginning of part 2,
Yeah.
where she like wraps
That
her
was-
arms around it in that dress. And that CGI mountain lion, and then we get the CGI baby just like kind of sitting there, and they're like
Yeah.
passing around this fake baby that
Oh,
like
doesn't the score just make you want to die also? Yeah, dude, the way they all stare at the baby, and like at one point the baby is playing like piano next to Edward, and they're all just like staring like big-eyed and smiling at this baby. It's just like, dude, this is creepy as shit.
yeah, and yeah, the baby. I was like, what? How, for as high a budget of this movie was, how many millions do you think they spent to make a CGI baby? Because I get that the baby's supposed to be special and maybe more
I mean, it was
calm.
bad. It was such a bad CGI baby
Yeah.
that I have to believe they did not spend a lot of money.
It looked terrible, but I feel like you could
It
save
looked
even
so bad.
more if you just put a real baby in there. Like,
Yeah, no shit.
and it only needs to be a baby for like a couple scenes. So you just
It
need a
doesn't
baby
matter.
to
Yeah.
sit in blankets in somebody's arms and be quiet while they film for a couple minutes. Like, it's literally not. People do that all the time. We've been doing this in movies since movies existed.
Yeah.
But for some reason
When
they
Bill-
chose. Yeah.
When Bill found out the pregnancy storyline, and when I told him that Stephenie Meyer was Mormon, he was like, "Oh, there's a lot of weird psychology behind this." I was like, "Yeah, dude." But yeah, the first movie was like so boring and so dumb.
Very, very boring. And
The only thing they did well was make Bella look gross
right.
and creepy and dead. They do have the great abortion debate about whether it's a fetus or a child or a
Oh
baby.
god, dude, I didn't even make that connection, but yeah, that's don't call it an it. Yeah.
Yeah.
God.
Just
yeah.
say it. It's
Yeah.
a baby, okay? Not a fetus. But everyone's yelling, fetus, the fetus. It's gonna kill her.
And then they show that vampire fucking in the part 2.
Oh yeah.
Where Edward's like, well, now you have to be the one careful not to hurt me.
Yeah.
Don't hurt me.
Delicate.
I'm delicate compared to a baby vamp. But and we said this already, but like, I liked the second movie better Why did I like it better? Because
yeah.
shit, dude, I could have just been like at a point where like I've been watching this for like 4 hours of Twilight, where my brain went numb, so I just liked the second movie better. But I would argue that it's because Rosenberg with the script, she uses kind of a normal kind of suspense movie formula. So she introduces the Volturi at the very beginning of Breaking Dawn Part 2, right? Where we have Irina telling the Volturi to make that, like, set up this kind of like menacing, this is dangerous, right? Like something we don't get in the novel until very, very, very way back in the back sections of it. So it sets up the tension immediately with kind of, they show Irina telling the Volturi, which they don't show in the novel, and when we kind of get the gears in motion of like, okay, there's this force of vampires coming after them, and it just sets it up with more tension than you would than the novel certainly has, but just kind of like a typical kind of suspense formula for a thriller or a movie or an action movie or something, right? And I think that just, it works. Again, having the screenwriter adapt it, take this kind of barren material and try to do what she could with it. I think Rosenberg did all she could, is all I'm saying. Like,
Cuts a lot of fat. There's no shit about
Right.
sparkling vampires.
yeah,
No one glitters in this movie.
yeah. And then Rami Malek shows up. This is Rami Malek before pre-Emmy, pre-Academy Award. Nobody knew who he was. This was this movie. They were filmed.
Mr. Robot, just Rami Malek,
Right,
just hanging
yeah.
out, being a vampire.
yeah. His pre-Emmy, pre-Oscar, and like it. And I guess these were filmed in like probably 2010. I would assume the movies were filmed. Then they released them in 2011, 2012. And I think Rami
Yeah.
Malek didn't get his break till Mr. Robot, and that was like what, 2015. So like right after that when he got
Okay.
his big break.
Also, does Edward have a New York accent in all of the movies, or just this last one?
Oh God, I don't know. I didn't even pay attention to the accents, dude.
Oh my god, it's great. I'm like, yeah, more of that.
But like, yeah, I'm sure it's there was actually a whole debate I saw recently, like people just like saying that like the California accent is the American accent or something that like actors imitate, because when actors are like, do an American accent, they do a California one, not New York or anything, Baltimore, like our accent, or they do.
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
The Mid-Atlantic accent has been hot lately.
Well, it is hot because it's a hard one to do, and usually people screw it up. The worst one I ever heard was Travolta in Hairspray.
Yeah,
That's-
I mean,
He didn't. He had no. I think he'd never heard any. He just had no idea how to do a Baltimore.
but I mean,
It's not hard for
always
me,
weird.
but it's also like I grew up around guys talking like that. Like, and so my brother and I'll do like the Glen Burnie kind of the East Baltimore, like the kind of
East Baltimore is my favorite.
oh, how about them, huh?
Come on,
Yeah,
come on.
yeah.
I love it every
Spurs
time my
Point.
mother-in-law says it.
Yeah, you going with Spurs Point. Yeah, but it's just easier for me, I guess, because I just grew up around it, so I just hear it all the time. But yeah, I mean, dude, my wife makes fun of me for my Baltimore. Like if I say certain words, usually my
good.
O's and my A's, and then she'll be like, "Oh my
Yeah,
God,"
good.
which is funny because
Yeah, Bill says bagel weird as shit.
yeah, but the thing is, like,
He
it is,
doesn't hear it.
yeah. Yeah, it's crazy, dude. I don't know where these accents come from, but it's like, whatever. My notes, Stuart looks even hotter in this one, in part 2, because she's supposed to
Yeah,
be.
but she's crazy skinny for a lot of it. I
Right.
thought.
Well, when I always say Kristen Stewart is, like, beautiful, I'm not necessarily referring to, like, her bodily features.
No, she's got
Right.
like her. She's
Not
hot
that
as
they're
shit.
bad.
I agree.
Yeah, not that they're bad, but
No.
they're not, like, she's not known for having this very curvy or anything. She just has a beautiful...
Well, it's not that she's curvy. I was just like, oh shit, like, is she okay?
Yeah, like eating disorder type. Yeah.
I mean, like, yeah, but like also for for the first half of Breaking Dawn, at least in the first movie, it's supposed to be like, I mean, they went out of their way to make her look like skeletal.
Right, yeah. And that works with the plot, yeah. maybe it was just because this is the first time that they showed Bella not wearing jeans and a baggy sweatshirt.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why I was like, damn, they just made her. And I know she's supposed to be. So she's a vampire now in part 2. So she's supposed to be like more beautiful than she ever was. And whatever, she's an attractive enough actress that she could make that work a lot. I was just like, damn, Stuart's looking great in these movies. Like, much better than in any of the previous ones, but whatever. I also got very Justice League vibes from like the Vampire Assembly, like calling all vampires type thing. Like, we have to unite to save the world. And
they all have superpowers.
Yeah. And we all had to learn their superpowers and origin stories and stuff. And they were all
except we didn't like keep track of any of them. Or
we
their
didn't,
names
and they
or
don't
whatever.
matter.
We just knew that someone around has this particular power, and like whatever.
But also,
it doesn't
like,
matter.
That made the movie a little more compelling for me, like the part 2 at least, because it was this kind of, well, we got to get the gang together to fight the evil. And I was like,
what made it more compelling? There's one thing that made the movie far more compelling than the book.
What?
We both know the answer. Carlisle! No!
Carlisle!
Dude, yells that the first movie.
Yeah.
It's great.
Carlisle! Yeah, dude. But my question for that is, what is it about like heroes teaming up that we kind of love, or I found intriguing, or like in stories, right? This is the whole appeal of the Marvel movies, right? Like the Avengers, the Justice Leagues.
Well, the appeal of like the Avengers and the Justice League shit is like the clashing of universes.
Well,
I
I
guess
mean,
it's all one universe, but like bringing together, it's like exciting to see all of these characters in the same place, and I think that's a lot of what fuels that. I think with this, it was like, I don't know, this didn't really excite me. It just felt like, oh, we're doing the moral thing.
Yeah, it was just
we're saving our kind. We're standing together, you know.
And the reason I called this formulaic, and I agree with you, yeah, okay, so it's not so much the gathering, but like that's a huge part. And I don't mean so much in terms of plot, I just mean in terms of like story device. So like when you're telling a story where it's like a bunch of people have to team up to do something together, and maybe they don't quite like each other, maybe they don't, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah, because it adds tension.
Right.
And it also makes for an even fight, so maybe you're not sure what's going to happen. Right. I don't fucking know.
And for some reason, I just enjoyed that more. Dude, I don't know I don't know if I was just past the point, like my brain had smoothed over by that point.
Yeah, you were past the point of no return. Yeah. I didn't care, but I think you were just like, oh, well, something's happening, and it's something other than just Bella.
Yeah.
But in the movie, the important thing that happens is... So when Alice comes to save the day...
Did you see the Tennyson nod in part 2? They like throw Tennyson, a little nod to Tennyson in there.
Well, yeah, he's in the book in part 2, right? Like she reads Tennyson to the baby.
Right, but I just mean it was a nice little touch.
And she's like, oh, well, this is what she prefers.
It's a nice little touch, I thought.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm all for, I mean, you know, we talked about this with King. We talked about this on all 4 of these Twilight episodes. Because those are only pop books we've done so far, but it's like, you know, I'm okay, right? It's nothing wrong with a writer putting in like some great literary figure. Yeah, dude. But I don't know why I was just like, it could have been cut out because it doesn't really matter, but I just appreciated that they took the time to take that couple seconds and show Bella reading some Tennyson to her womb, you know, her baby inside of her kind of thing. I was like, all right, I'll take that as a little nod to the novel. Like I said, maybe my mood while watching the second one, I was just so glazed over that I was just being less harsh on it.
You're just, no, I think you were like elated. You were just ready to be done. You're like, everyone gets an A.
Yeah, everyone gets an A.
You all did great.
Yeah, good job, everybody. End of the school year, yeah.
Yeah, but they give us a fight in the movie, dude.
Dude, yeah.
And like the first 5 minutes that the fight is happening, I'm just like, okay, when are they gonna pull back on me?
Dude, I didn't want to text this about you because I finished this like a week before you did, but I didn't want to give that up to you yet. I wanted you to experience that untainted.
Because I was looking for it. I was like, give me, all right, dude, it's a debate. Come on. Let
me just read you my notes as that was happening, right? All right. The last thing I wrote after that, I was like, all right, why is Emily not a part of the series at all? Seems like a huge miss, and I already talked about that. But then the scene with Alice talking to Aro, Alice throwing a kick, LOL, Jesus. Carlisle fighting and dying, and I put exclamation points, and I put Jasper dead, and then I was like, and then my note is, this better not be a dream, and then I was like, God damn it, fucking dream, bullshit.
Yeah.
Those were my sequence of notes as that scene was
Dude, when
unfolding.
Aro does that crazy laugh,
Yeah.
Aro does that crazy laugh when he meets Renesmee, but yeah. Mine were like, oh shit, Alice tells Bella to tell Jake and Renesmee, to run, and Alice starts fighting. Oh shit, Carlisle's dead. Jabate? Oh, they're fighting. Jabate?
Yeah.
And then there's no notes after that until like the very end.
It was intense.
Because I was just like, oh my god, like wolves are dying, like
Jacob
fucking
taking
vampires
off.
are dying
Yeah.
left and right.
And Jacob taking off with the kid on his shoulders, like that was great. I was like, oh, because that's what the story desperately needed. We needed the showdown. It was all leading to this showdown between the
We
good.
needed Carlisle to die.
Yeah, we needed Carlisle to get his head ripped off. Is what we needed. Yeah,
But yeah, and then it's all a dream. Well, not a dream. It's all a vision.
a possible
that Alice
future.
is
Yeah,
showing to Aro to be like, see, you're not gonna win.
we'll both lose. And that's what pissed me off about, we talked about this already, so the ending of the talking resolution in the novel, where they just
Right, but-
talk and it ends.
Yes.
So it was almost, and you and I talked about this via text a little bit, it was very cathartic to see Carlisle get his head ripped off. Like, it was shocking, and I was like, oh my god, are they doing this? Like, oh. And then, like you said, it
I was
kept
like,
going.
no, not Carlisle, but like it was good, right?
Right.
Like you were like, this is a good thing that's happening.
Right. And I felt the same thing as
Exciting.
you, where as soon as I saw
But
Carlisle's...
I also was like, I was deep down, I was like, yeah, they're not doing this. They're not
Right,
doing this.
right.
There's
There
no.
was- And I went through those motions, like you said, where it was like, at first, I was kind of just shocked for shock's sake. Like, oh, that's not in the book. Like, this isn't what's supposed to happen type thing. But then, and I was like, okay, this is going to be a stupid dream or a vision or something. And then it kept going for like 10, 15 minutes. And then I got the same
Yeah,
thing
it's
you
a
said.
huge scene.
Yeah, where
It's
you're
a
like,
huge,
okay.
long fucking scene.
And then I was like, okay, they're doing this. Let's fucking go.
And you're like into it.
Yeah, I'm like, let's fucking go. Like, this
Yeah,
is what we
dude.
needed.
Everyone's dying.
Yeah.
Feels like we're finally getting ours.
And at first I thought it was real too, because Bella and Edward weren't dying and the baby wasn't dying. So I was like, that's really what matters, is that Edward and Bella are still together with the baby at the
Right.
end.
I was like, oh shit.
So like, I was like, oh
I
shit.
was like, oh shit, did they really do this? But
Right.
either way, even though it was like a whole dumb thing, it still needed to happen, and I appreciate that it happened because, oh my God, if we got there and that did not happen and they just all turned around and left, which is what happens in the book.
Right.
Like, they
Yeah,
stay
yeah,
and
yeah.
talk there for a long time.
And we have to call our
But they all
witnesses
just turn
forth
around
one
and
by
leave.
one.
Yeah, and they all give fucking speeches.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciated that they understood that they needed something to actually happen in this
Right.
movie.
There
And
needed
so
to be a
even though
climax.
nothing actually happens, they showed it to us anyway.
And I always bring up the Potter comparison. This is what Poppin', like, this is the end of Potter, right? Like, the fucking battle. The fucking battle at Hogwarts and shit.
The
And
Hogwarts
whatever,
battle.
they screwed it up in the
Oof.
movies. We'll get there when we get to those books and movies, when we do those eventually, listeners. But, like, it just... You need to have that. Like, everything's been building to this point where they're bucking all the problems. Bella and Edward end up together, and now we have this last little stand between the Volturi and the rest of the Cullen coven. And it just... And the fact that it all worked out perfectly, that all these vampires are living here and they don't kill anybody and there is no suspicion and they're all just cooperating perfectly even though they've never done this before. It was just, we needed that. We needed fucking chaos, and I personally wish that they didn't make it just a vision, that they just...
Oh yeah, that
But-
would have been great, but that never would have been the fans would not have been cool with that.
Yeah.
They wanted the happy ending.
And when you and I were texting about this, that's the point you made. Yeah, that like the fans would have been furious, and like people would have been calling to boycott like the studios or whatever that made it. They would have been furious that Carlisle got his head ripped off.
Yeah, like imagine that Dumbledore didn't die in the books and then they killed him in the movies. It'd be
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Stupid talking resolution, dude. The stupid talking.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
And then finally, we get Jake turning to Ed and saying, "Should I call you Dad? So, should I start calling you Dad? It's not like that, okay? Really?
Should I start calling you Dad now that your daughter's
I don't wanna-
progressively? It's like
I
by
don't
the end
wanna
of the year
fuck your
she'll be
3-month-old
18.
daughter.
Yeah. By the end of the month she'll be 18.
She'll
So
be fully grown.
yeah,
She just has to reach 7 years old and she'll be fully grown,
yeah.
according to the lore."
That too, the way they kind of and this is the book and the movie, the way that they parade that kind of like the Amazon half vampire half human guy out, it's not enough.
Yeah, I
like
have to
everything else,
explain
it's
all that.
unearned. It's an unearned move.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it was unearned in the book also,
Right. That's me.
but it
both.
doesn't matter
Yeah.
because all they needed was a resolution. Like no one read the book for the actual fight. But by this point, you're just like reading the book for the happily ever after, just because there's no romantic tension anymore,
Right.
which is what the book started as, or what the series started as. I keep calling it the book.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it's whatever. And like I said at the very beginning of this, once the credits started rolling on the final part 2, Breaking Dawn part 2, I just felt such a sense of relief. Like I felt such a sense of like, oh, I'm done with Twilight. I'm done with this. Like I'm finally finished.
Yeah, dude.
Like I don't ever have to look at this again.
It's over. We're done.
Yeah, good. Well, my last question, as always when we do these book first movies, book or movie,
Movie.
part 2 or
I mean, I feel like at
Count 'em
least
as
in the
one.
movies, it just condenses it all.
right?
It takes the essential elements and boils it down because nothing exciting happens. And at least in the movie, when they have sex, I get to kind of see it.
Right. I have a
yeah,
weird
this-
answer for this one.
I liked Jacob's section.
Right.
So with the exception of that, but yeah, I could be probably in this instance, I might go movie, even though I do think
Right.
like the part 1 was really bad,
Yeah.
but I'm still going movie. I'm going movie. I've locked in my answer.
Good.
Movie, both parts.
Yeah, I have a stupidly specific answer to that one for this question. For Breaking Dawn and then the 2 movies, part 1, part 2. Part 1, the first half of the book is better than the movie for part 1, and then part 2, the movie's better than the book. So that would be
Yeah.
my thing, which is
I mean,
kind of a
that's
cop
accurate.
out. And I see it's kind of a
If I had to pick one or the other, if I couldn't pick,
right.
if I couldn't do it that way,
Yeah, gun to the head.
I'm going movie.
Yeah. and
All right.
which is rare because, as we've talked about, to improve these books, you didn't have to do much, but usually the movie is never as good as the book, but in this case, most of the movies were better than the books, like kind of thing.
I still go for the book over the movie for at least the first couple.
Right. Fuck, this is the end of our Twilight series. There it is. The poster, the anime poster. Edward and Bella. I like that
There it
poster. I guess this book technically dropped before the first movie did. So I think the first movie came out in 2008, same year that this final book dropped. So I like that the anime poster is not just copying Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson's look for the characters, but it's a dumb poster. Dumb fucking poster.
Oh man, it's over. Yeah, I'll still forever have this DVD, I guess, that came with the book.
We'll have to pop that in and do like a watch party or something, dude. Like we'll have to just see it.
Find a DVD
Oh,
player.
that's right. You don't own a DVD player.
I guess. Well, I have a PlayStation.
Yeah, dude, that counts.
Probably pop it in there.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've never opened this. It's probably still in perfect condition.
that's good, dude. That's good. Damn. Fuck. Anyway, that's it. This is the final fucking chapter of the Twilight Saga for Heavy Board. I guess if any listeners let us know, we plan to do this with other books, other book series, kind of fantasy series like this. So let us know if you like this shit. If this is anything worthwhile. I can't even see.
Bullshit that it comes with.
Oh god, it came with a whole bunch of stuff. Concert
Breaking
series.
Dawn concert series. This shit I didn't know was back here.
And I was surprised that there was not more Muse, considering that Meyer thanks Muse in every acknowledgement section for the last 3 books.
Yeah, you kind of expect. I mean, but dude, do you though? Like the score was bad. I wrote, God, I fucking hate the score so much. Every I don't know, every couple pages of my notes for the movies was like every other page.
Yeah,
It's like this fucking score.
I didn't know most of the music because it was like a very specific type of like 2011
Well, they
indie.
just really leaned into the song that was supposed to be like Bella's lullaby
Yeah,
that they used, and yeah, there was this really particular brand of indie
yeah, and
that kept happening.
I like indie rock, listeners, but I was not in like
No,
my,
this was very like romance novel indie. This was
yeah,
like what I listened to that I didn't tell people about because it wasn't cool.
like my wife knew it more than I did. Where that wedding scene,
Right, because she listened to it
yeah,
and she didn't tell anybody because it wasn't cool.
I don't know.
Because it was like indie music, but like for girls.
It was during the wedding scene when they were playing the music. My wife was like, "Oof, this Iron and Wine song," and I was like, "Oh, that's who it is." Yeah. I was like, "Oh yeah. I never liked them." Like,
Yeah, it was 2008.
it's that very kind of soft indie rock that was like a thing then, coming out of the emo era, and then I like indie rock. Like I said,
Yeah,
I just never into that type. I never liked.
everyone who like came out of like the Coldplay era,
Yeah.
like mellow indie.
Yeah. I've never been a fan of that.
No.
But yeah, whatever. What can you do? All right, is that it, dude? Anything else? Did we hit everything you wanted?
Yeah, I mean, I already said it's the best. It's, still the best abstinence themed romance series I know of personally.
Uh,
And I'm changing all of my former opinions, pro-life, pro-child marriage. Um, so kudos, Stephenie Meyer.
so you're
You did
saying,
it.
so you're saying this is a propaganda book?
And it's all there. Like, I'm not
Propaganda,
saying it is, but it's all there.
propaganda for the Mormon Church.
It doesn't have to be propaganda. It could just be, what she's into,
Yeah.
which happens to be, you know, not aborting the fetus. What are your final thoughts? You just read 3 long ass vampire romance novels written for teenage girls.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad it's over. I wasn't a big fan of any of these. There were moments, I think, of good stuff, but I would never say great, I guess, but moments of good stuff, and yeah, I'm glad I never have to read these again. But and this isn't something that I would like seek out and want to read again. I mean, this isn't something I would seek out if we didn't have a fucking podcast that we were going to read these books. I never would have read them.
There is part of me that's like a little bit sad.
That it's over?
Yeah, even after that whole slogging through half of the book, like I'm a little like, oh, It's over. I
Right.
don't know. I don't know if it's just like a series ending thing or if it because it touched something in my insecure soul or what.
I was not sad it was over. I was relieved entirely that it was done. Especially after that last 300 pages where we just get a long way to end up where we were in chapter 21. Yeah, pissed me off more than most pop books. Like, I try to be forgiving of pop books, but it just, some of these things were so egregious that it really blows my mind what gets published, why. I really don't understand it at all. And people claim that it's subjective, and I was like, yeah, well, if it's subjective, then somehow all the gatekeepers seem to have terrible taste. Like, I just don't,
Dude,
like,
vampires were so hot in this moment.
they were.
Fantasy was like, I don't know. I mean, I assume fantasy was always kind of hot, but like it was having a moment post Harry Potter.
Well,
And it
yeah,
was also like, I
yeah.
don't know if maybe it was like kind of new to have like essentially a romance novel for teens, which is why it's okay that it's like pro abstinence and like pro choice essentially.
Yeah, I don't know enough about it, but I mean, I guess I would say the young adult stuff really started to happen, right? Like in the late 80s, early 90s, when there started to be like a straight up like young adult genre where you could have these kind of fantasy series.
Yeah, but does young adult necessarily like to me this was like a romance. Like this wasn't just
Right.
I mean, I guess it is. It's just young adult,
Right, yeah.
but we can debate about what genre it is another day.
Yeah. It was nothing but relief when this was done, yeah. I'm relieved it's over now, honestly. Then we can move on. And like there are part of me I texted you about
I'm
this.
relieved to be done with like Kristen Stewart and Taylor Lautner, and I am so ready to go rewatch The King later and every little bit of Robert Pattinson that I can get my hands on to ride this out.
Sophie's got a Robert Pattinson kick.
Yeah, dude, total boner for Robert Pattinson.
Yeah. And he seems to be, well, I guess Stewart and him both have had careers after this, which is unusual for two actors that got their start being typecast in these type of series.
Yeah.
But I think it's because this series didn't have such a lasting effect.
Yeah, wasn't she doing shit before that though? I mean, they both were.
I think they both were getting like bit parts, but these were like their first big, like they, she was the female lead, he was the male lead. Like that was their first big, like starring, fresh faces in this movie that was making off these hit books. And usually as an actor, you get pegged into that role, right? Like, it's just hard to get out of that once you've been pegged or typecast as like,
Yeah, he plays some weird roles.
yeah. So a lot of actors you see do that.
Although
Just take,
still like
yeah.
an older man preying on younger women in at least one of these instances.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about Radcliffe, like, he clearly, and again, he's not such a good actor, but he clearly was desperate for a while to do anything that would separate him from the Harry Potter character.
Yeah, that's why he played Eccles.
Yeah, that's why he was doing all kinds of weird shit, like doing kinds of like indie movies and like doing like full frontal nudity in plays and stuff in London, and like just desperate to get away from that typecast of the boy who lived type thing. So I understand that, like I understand that as like an actor, you don't want to be stuck. You're trying to do more than just this one role you got cast in when you were 18. And in Radcliffe's case, when he was like 6 or whatever, or like 10 years old or something. But yeah, it's surprising that both Stewart and Pattinson are getting cast as male leads and female leads, in a bunch of movies. Oscar, I mean, Stewart was just nominated for an Oscar for Spencer, the Diana biopic.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, she didn't win. I mean, I didn't see the movie yet, but I will eventually. But yeah, I mean, she's not a strong enough actress to play that. And it came out right after The Crown had already done their Diana season.
Yeah.
And that actress that played Diana in that really kind of did it really well. Like, she crushed it. And I just didn't see how Stewart could compare with that. Like, it doesn't have the chops. This no-name actress, like British actress, just did it so much better than Stewart ever could. And I haven't even seen the movie, and I already know that, so it makes sense that she didn't win. But whatever, the nomination is what really matters for a lot of... Still, I mean, that's, you don't see that happening with people that have been cast in that. So it is unusual. Maybe it's because this thing, like I said last episode, I don't think this series will be remembered. Like, I don't think it'll last...
I don't think
100
it's going to
years.
matter. I don't think it's going to be like a stain on either of their careers. Like, it doesn't fucking matter.
Right. And even if it is, I mean, I just mean the
If
book.
anything, it just boosted them into the spotlight that much more.
And they made a bunch of money. Everybody got rich making those movies. So, why not? But yeah, I just, and we can get more into this. We will get more into this. It'll be one of the reoccurring themes on our podcast is just like, yeah, I mean, what makes something stand the test of time? What makes people want to, why are we still obsessed with Lord of the Rings 100 years later? Why are we not obsessed with all the other ones?
Well, it helps if you don't have to explain the movie to your spouse because they haven't read the book.
Yeah,
that
helps. That too. And I mean, if the books were better, if the books were more timeless, if the books were more anything, like, if they're not going to hold up. Like, this is, we're just 10 years removed from the last of it, from the end of the whole thing with the final movie coming out. And like, it already is dated. There are already like things that like don't hold up in like the movie and the books and all that, even 10 years later from when they were written and published. So, is this going to last 20 years from now? Maybe people at our age that read them growing up will talk about them and laugh about them, whatever, at cocktail parties. But I don't think after our generation that this will be something people are like sharing with their kids and like, oh, let's go do this. Let's watch this. Like, it's just not going to be something. At least that's my prediction. I don't know. I'm sure people would argue with that.
Well, it's been 3.5 hours of this.
Yeah, we've made it. I knew this was going to be a long one, though, because the book was so long, and then it's 2 movies, and...
2 fucking movies.
Yeah, dude, too much. Too much Twilight. Too much Twilight. All right. Anything else you done? We covered it.
I'm so fucking done.
Yeah. All right, reminders to listeners, contact us. You can contact us at heavyboardpodcast@gmail.com. Subscribe to our Patreon to receive full, uncensored episodes for subscribers only, including get access to our locked episodes. That is at patreon.com/heavyboard. Check out our YouTube channels. Subscribe for more. Check out that. We have clips and links to all the books and everything we covered in the descriptions of this podcast and all those clip videos and YouTube videos, whatever you prefer. And then finally, listeners, we're back full circle. We're finally going to do next episode, Theory of the Lyric by Jonathan Culler. Very high-minded in terms of theory of the lyric. I'm looking forward to that book. And I think my brain is craving it, so I'm craving substance. I'm craving...
I don't know if I am. I'm ready to have more junk food.
Yeah. I did read a Stephen King
ready
book right
to
after
gobble
this.
some trash.
Yeah.
But like good trash.
So I just read Stephen King's JFK book right after this. Pretty good.
Yeah, very good.
That was another long one, dude. That was like 800 pages. It flies though, because it's Stephen King, so it fucking flies. But yeah, that's it. That's it. This has been Heavy Board.
Fucking it.
Yeah. This has been Heavy Board.
Heavy.
Bored.
Heavy.
I am heavy
Bored.
I may say that the male is entirely hostile. No!
Resources.
such a lack of gratitude for life. Bored. I aspire to boredom, I should say.
Bored. Heavy.
I am heavy.
Bored.
Has you the night sweats and the day sweats, pal? Pal, I do.